intermunicipal assessment agreement between Orange County and the town of Goshen. And I wanted to get your approval to move forward with our plan to make the assistant assessor a full-time by combining two part-time positions as well as we discussed back in August. I would also like to make you aware that the contract for 3 years, 2023, 2024, 2025, so that we do not have to keep doing this each year. The cost for the first year is $150,000, then $154,500, and then $160,680 the third year. In the interim of getting this, I sat down with our assessor and the assistant assessor, Eileen, and we started discussing a package where they would potentially become employees of the town of Goshen, leave the county and come to work for us. Well, one full-time, and Alan, the assessor, would be part-time. The combined cost would only cost us, Mary, what was it, $105,000?
Let's say 107.
$107,000 versus $150,000, and therefore a $43,000 cost. Alan wouldn't get benefits, and Aileen wouldn't get benefits. She'd get the buyout though. So, discussion. Any questions? Discussion? Concerns?
Well, that's the first I had heard, there's such a big difference in that we were entertaining for the employees. But the one thing that I think, and I really don't have it as a firm decision in my mind, but yet I was going with the state of the county. And one of the things that was really good about that is we had the backup in the county. And they pulled in other people from time to time, and we had a serious situation. And when we were here, basically alone, those two people, these two people were totally different. There were difficulties, there were problems that we had. And that was one of the really good things, among the fact that we saved a lot of money that we had there, because we had
Two and a half.
three people in office, so we saved money on that. The fact that we come back here and then we didn't have the benefit of that. It was a
$47,000.
You look at this on the contract we had last time. It said plus oversight guidance by county director, assistant director, support staff, including technical people. And I know, for example, when John McCary, we were getting ready to do all the pilots, all power things. Not only did we have to do those, but we had to meld in with what other places in the county were doing, and to include the school. And we were getting fisticuffs with the school and everybody else, and John was on our side. So there were some things like that, and they did happen. I know Phil and I were the ones that worked on the pilots, and one of my concerns might be is that, let's say Eileen just a year from now says, you know, my husband and I have to sell everything, we're going to Florida. What are we going to do then to bring someone in? You know,
Always that chance, always that possibility. And I did get from her, she's gonna be here for at least a minimum of 5 years. So her husband's to retire.
right.
So, I mean, yeah, listen, if we stay with them, we still get the same two people, but the insurance policy costing you $47,000 a year the first year, $53,000 the second year, and $60,000 the third year.
We initially, way back when we had problems with our assessor in Kelly, it was a struggle. It was a struggle because having a part-time assessor and a full-time deputy only works in a tiny little situation. It's not the way it goes. We always had to have a full-time assessor, always, as a department head, and then maybe a part-time or another full-time assistant. It's not the reverse. The assessor is the key. So we really had a problem. I think hiring a full-time assessor now is going to cost, you know what it costs to build the department. It's going to, and it's almost impossible to get good full-time assessors. We interviewed from Delaware County, Sullivan County, Rockland. It was a nightmare in order to staff our assessing office. Just so you know, I understand that in a perfect world, we might save 47,000. It won't out, you know, it won't come out to be that. Once we run the county, Georgia also, We never had that, we never had staffing. We were always fully staffed, we were always fully operated, so. We really have to weigh that. And I'm just giving you, throwing it in, you know, what because we went through it, we lived through that. We went through maybe 3 assessments, right, Doug?
Yes, and the last one we had, that we did renew with the highest paid person. She came here from Ramapo, and so she demanded that, we couldn't find it.
We couldn't find it.
Well, we got a good one now, part-time, that basically does full-time work at a part-time, scale. So, yeah,
I'm good, it's
you're
not
tremendous.
I'm all for it if we could keep the status quo for another 10 years.
Yeah, listen, I think, it's only a work session. I mean, I don't want to, anybody else wants to jump in, but I think that each and every one of the councilmen should go up and sit down with them. I didn't want to bring them here until, we brought it, up in a public forum, but I didn't want to bring them in to speak tonight. But I think each and every one of you should probably sit down. I sat down with both of them. My indication from Alan is we've been doing this for a year, and, it's a well-oiled machine. We can do it, and he's taking the risk of leaving the county, but he feels comfortable enough that, he would rather spend the next 5 years here than a county employee. So I suggest that each, you sit down and talk with them, and then, we can bring, I have to get back to Paul Wiley and let him know something. So I'm telling him that we will have a decision by December 19th.
Yeah.
That meeting.
Did you counter, well, I only did this to John.
Yeah.
Wait, you send paperwork, say, got a few thousand off this, we might.
Yeah, I mean, I said I need to be somewhere in the 125 range, so I'm gonna have.
They make money on it, too.
They're making, yeah, I know what they pay both of those employees, yeah.
Well, it's an economy of scale, plus they, that's how we, just on us. But, I don't know, I think if you had an assessor and we want to take on the responsibility of the assessor, it's a huge, huge responsibility. You're probably gonna have to really look at a full-time assessor.
Well, I suggest, like I
Because you can't
said,
turn to anyone and say, okay, this is not going right. You need to really fix this. It just doesn't happen. You either fix it here or it doesn't get fixed. But I mean, I'm just giving you.
no, listen, I appreciate that. I like I said, I think the best thing for you to, everybody to do is sit down with them one-on-one or 2-on-1, sit down with both of them and go through it.
Once again, I only look at positions, I don't look at people,
Mhm.
because people will change every day.
Right.
I'm only looking at the business model
Right.
of, do we have an assessor part-time forever? Difficult to get part-time police officers. You're not gonna get a part-time assessor. The family leave, May. And then you got a full-time, so I always look at the position. If we're gonna create positions, that's what we have to do. Regardless, even talking to the people, I'm sure that the people, but tomorrow that will change.
Absolutely.
So what we really are deciding now is, do we want to create an assessor's office with 2 or 1.5 full-time? That's really what we're looking at. So.
When we
We have to
had the
think.
last time, we had 3 full-time people and 1 part-time. And the assessor we had against very experienced. The last one we had came out of Ramapo, retired there. Then when they started it up, they had 2 assessors, they had Arnie Silver and I guess Alan, I don't know, I just remember. And then, but they had 4 people in the office. We had 1 full-timer, Francine, who's 2 left, and then so we were heavy. Francine retired, moved back to it. Arnie Silver left, and he's not back to it. And John retired. Harry, he was the data collector. And then, so anyway, and then we had another lady, so we're down really to 1 person full-time and 1 part-time, and what can we get done? And what shows it can be done, but they're not doing the things again like pilots and all those other
And that's
things.
in search areas, I don't think, usually, our people have to look in for the search area. Rory, are they do still doing it?
No, Rob Rametti.
None of us, I know, no, even with the attorneys. A lot of times we have to have our assessor go in there and dig the data so that the attorneys understand.
Well, I agree with you.
That's
Let's
what's
talk to
happening.
the talk to them and find out what they're.
Absolutely.
They feel they can do it. Two of them.
Well, they've been doing it for years. We let go, like, well, not a year, but almost a year.
Right,
I was only here a month when we let him go.
right.
Well, the county let him go, I should say. The other part timer that. Was doing the same things.
They're, once again, they're
Was it ever-
responsible for it, if they want to bring nobody to the office. And there's a problem, they're responsible.
Correct, so
Yeah.
what happened was is. We had an incident upstairs, without going into full detail, an incident with this gentleman. It turned out, that we had to file a complaint with the county investigated and. Sued,
Yeah.
fired him for what he did.
Yeah.
At that point, Alan came to me and said, let's just give it a go right now, just need, having, or Aileen, work the extra day, we'll bill back the county for that part-timer. And they've done it for 9 months, and it's been very successful, and they're getting it done, and they're getting all the assessments done.
Not opposed to it, I'm saying.
I-
we need to look at them.
Yeah.
That's all.
All right, well, we'll table it to the next meeting, I hope you guys will reach out to both, Alan and, Aileen and go through it all.
I've worked with Alan for years, because I was on the section for the review. Many other things, so I mean, I know you put a date. Not a problem.
Go. What, do you want me to do anything with the IMA at this point? I mean,
I'm gonna reach out to Paul tomorrow and let him know that, we're in discussions right now, we're not sure we're moving forward, the cost has increased dramatically, as he knows. And we're gonna discuss on December 19th, have a definitive answer by December 12th.
Quick question. Is Paul giving us more employees for the assessor's office,
No,
or he's just running it the way it is now?
just the way it is now.
It's part-time.
No, I think it'll be full time.
No, but two part-time, yeah.
No, we have a full time and a part time. I think it's a full time.
But those numbers.
Aileen's a
No.
part-time with the-
Yeah, she's not counting.
She's a part time with the county and she works for us.
Yeah, we give,
County supplies the employees. She doesn't work for us.
She works 2 days for us, we pay her. Okay, yes,
and then
Does she
we
just
charge
county
back
money?
the
Oh,
county.
we charge it back?
we charge back the county.
So the county is still paying.
No, the county is, we're charging back the replacement of that person that was let go. So we didn't lower the contract. Christine, you want to explain it? Make it a lot easier.
in the contract, it's I think 115, but then we're subtracting out
The second part time.
was it 142? But because we're not paying that, we don't have that part-timer, we're subtracting out the 27,000, so now we're only paying the 115.
Right, and then we're paying Aileen the extra day that she worked, the
That's
extra hour she works.
So they're not abiding by the contract. We're not
That
supposed to
was
supply
the
any.
agreement that was made.
That's the
because-
agreement we made.
Because we
When,
didn't,
when was that?
I mean, all of a sudden, the sun is gone.
Oh,
So we
okay.
had to do something.
I
So that
understand.
was
Here's the way it worked. I negotiated the original contract. They were supposed to supply the employees, 1, 2, 5, or 11.
Right.
If they're not doing that, if there's something different, I don't know.
It was brought up as a board resolution, we voted on it.
We voted on what?
We voted on the removal of that person and Aileen working the extra hours.
It's fine. What I'm saying to you is the county's responsible
Oh, yeah.
for everything. If we made an agreement where we'll pay and they'll do whatever. But our contract was,
No, absolutely,
you
you're
supply
absolutely
the
right.
employees.
You're
the rest of
absolutely
it's
right.
all belong.
Yeah,
You know
you're
what I'm
absolutely
saying? I
right.
don't understand. So anyway. It's okay.
No, you're absolutely right. That was the agreement.
certainly was.
That was the agreement.
We're not abiding by it.
There's also a problem finding part-time employees. And that's
Exactly.
one of the biggest problems.
It was theirs.
But
And
that's
what
their
it was, that was why
problem.
we went. Because we could not find,
They can't either.
they sign a contract, they come over here and send their management over, they send their commissioner over.
Right.
I don't care who, that's the reason we did it. That's the only reason we said, you wanna be responsible, we'll pay you. But anyway,
That's the part I think if you look out 5, 10 years, where it might be. And again, Elaine may just say, well, they're going to Florida, or who knows what it is. Then we're gonna have to get the person behind. So I don't know, I'm certainly not against it, but I'm certainly.
No, I'm not against it.
I'm gonna talk to them
Talk to them.
upstairs.
Yep,
Okay.
exactly. Talk to them and get a feel for it.
I just want everybody to understand what's going on.
So Rick.
I'm good. Uh-uh.
So back to the second item on there is what we tabled the last time. The chief gave us a letter. Review and discuss hiring a full-time police officer. I had Christine prepare. That,
I have no.
I'm doing better now, sure. So I had Christine prepared a year-to-date overtime that we're paying year over year, 2020, 2021, now current through December 9th, 2022. We're at $137,833. I also had to prepare what the cost is when hiring a full-time person. I know Doug, you had said it was 75 cents on the dollar. It's actually 53 cents on the dollar,
That was the cost on 53 cents.
53%. So I'm
So,
Right, part of the, difference is when we're hiring somebody young and new.
part of that.
No,
Oh,
no, but it's, they're gonna be single, they're not gonna, be family.
So you're predicating that based on a single policy, which, so we. Let's just move on. I don't know,
I mean.
No, so-
I ran a business, I know, I mean, I ran a corporation, I mean, it's not the way we do business, but let's move on. How do you know he's gonna be single?
no.
Yeah, I mean, whatever the benefits are, then. it's
Correct.
fine. You hope for the best, but you look at the worst scenarios, so. You can't stop 100%.
Is it medical that we're going with CSCA? Is that gonna be going over to the PBA?
PBA is night shift, but night shift and the MVP are so close right now, right, George? We haven't got the new one, but.
Well,
it's planned.
there's still a savings, but not nearly
Yeah.
what we have in the past. In fact, I think Christine, you did a workup. I didn't bring that today, but we analyzed that because in the negotiations with police, there was the thought maybe we wouldn't even offer it because like. Parallel, but no, there's still some.
Somewhat of a savings.
Leaving that in as a
Yeah.
proposal.
They were huge before.
Oh, yeah.
Well, every year it decreased.
It seems to be.
Yeah. In fact, I think when I took over, Doug gave me the report, that last year, we're down to like maybe $15,000 savings last year. Where we started out, it was like
It
120,000.
was.
But the thing is the
Well,
employees.
yeah.
Get, I mean, we're probably the only municipality in the state of New York where employees don't pay a copay.
Right,
or deductible.
Yeah, it's a very rarity that you have somebody have an HR.
And so we're still saving a little bit. If we took that away, what was nice, it's.
Yeah. So I'll just say one thing. at the beginning of- I know we're in the middle of contract negotiation with EPA. And obviously, the more full-timers the EPA has, the more leverage and the more they have. I would recommend that we use them with another full-time position.
Oh,
That's just Phil.
no,
Move on.
I concur and agree with you. That's why it's a
Oh,
work
okay.
session and not out for a vote tonight. It's for discussion. Also, you know, I understand that, the chief is having a difficult time. First of all,
Yeah,
getting a part-time state trooper that has retired is pretty much impossible. So that puts us into a predicament now where we just hired a part-timer who's 27 years old. So, he's back, he's not vested in the pension plan, so we are paying towards his pension right now, because there's just no state troopers like that. They're either moving south, like Bernie Rivers now, he resigned, he's moving
Yeah.
south. So we've lost 3 state troopers in the last 4 months.
Yeah.
And they're just going, and there's nobody retiring, so there's no pool like Chief McDowell had to pull from. I mean, Post is looking at it, but just nobody's coming. We're getting all young kids that are coming on, working second shifts, working in Middletown, taking a second shift here, working in Walk Hill, taking a second shift here. So, I mean, the benefit that we had before, when there was no retirement, that's out the window. So the only cost saving for the town right now would be that of insurance.
maybe we should look at the shifts. How much coverage we really need and how many shifts we really need. and, you know, what the shift hours are and all the data, because we have the sheriff's department, we have the state police, I know they like to, but if we, have to reduce that shift personnel, they have to cover those. Not sure, so, I mean, there are a number of areas that I think our
These are all-
police chief
these
needs
are
to
all
look at and talk to us.
These are all things that you can address by, putting an email out to the chief and saying, can I get an incident report based on, by shift, by day?
I'm just throwing out the town board, what we think about.
Chief McDowell, when he got here, of course, we had 3 people, full timers, that were out and spent, they were out for 12 months. And they all wanted disability retirement. One of them, we had 2 federal lawsuits because of the problem. But it was very costly. I remember Chief McDowell said, Doug, part-time, I mean, did our last contract. Agree, if you don't
Contract.
don't like it, you don't use it. But when they're full-time, you gotta use them in litigation, particular federal litigation is so expensive. And it was just time consuming, do the wrong.
Yeah, I mean, those are incidents that happen that, required the town to go after certain police officers, that we understand. We hope that that doesn't happen in the future,
We'll
but,
go after them, we have to defend ourselves.
Yeah. well, we defended ourselves
Yeah.
because we let them go based on stuff that they had done. So,
Well, but I think that the other thing is to hire the right one.
Yeah.
I think that some of those years ago, we didn't do a very good job.
everybody likes to marry the first woman they see and hope it's the right one, but sometimes it's just not the right one.
I think that probably works for the girls and the guys. I don't know.
I think we can use that, I think we should.
Well,
Yeah.
I was telling you, I know where it's
Right.
I did, we did,
Yeah, no.
many years, I know where it's.
I concur. I mean, we're close. I mean, me and George are close with them. It's almost done. It's either that or it's going in a different direction, but.
No. No,
But you know,
It does make 2 cents or 3 cents.
No, listen,
But
Without giving you any sense.
Bill, I think you and I need to share with Joe in private office, some of the things we're thinking about back then. As we went out to Albany.
Sure. All right, well, like I said, it's not part of the work session. It's not part of a discussion to approve, so. Item number 3 is to review the Heritage Development Agreement. Before I start that, I got an email from Roger Mumford tonight asking us for it to be removed from the agenda because of the draft developers agreement that Rory put together contradicts the agreement that Kelly put together. And he has some concerns. I'm gonna bring them up and then we'll, we can table it or we determine how we're gonna react to this. Okay, so Rory's draft agreement states in it that a cash performance bond of $151,584 is required. That's what we agreed on when we did it. However, the resolution that was put together by Kelly dated November 10th and given to us only calls for a performance bond, not that of a cash performance bond. That's the one that's signed that Mumford has. The resolution we have in front of us calls for the performance cash bond, and he is not going to put a cash bond on.
But you know, Joe, this board, all along, we've only been doing cash.
Doug, I fully understand, but this is we have an error here.
Because people were kind of ready to walk away and leave us pulling back.
I'm fully in agreement with the cash bond. I don't disagree with you whatsoever. I understand the circumstances.
Okay.
But here we have a legal circumstance where the document that we signed does not call for a cash performance bond. I don't know how you, so
What does it say? What does it
just said the performance bond.
Well, I mean, it's a performance bond, but
We can
Cash.
determine we want cash as the performance bond.
maybe the cash was just left out. We've been talking about that right along, not only with Mumford, but everybody. Yes, we want a cash bond, because I know it's gonna happen here. There's gonna be a problem. And then there's gonna be a bond, and then we have to go out. Go out and, can't, do all the litigation to.
I'm gonna do what Roger requested and table this because this is gonna require a legal interpretation. All right?
Cross all the Ts and dot all the Is with this.
Let's, hold on, sorry, I was a little distracted by the phone, but, I agree tabling it, I will look into whether or not. If it's gonna, I'll look at if performance bond could be extrapolated out to be a cash bond, still gonna be challenged by it.
Let them challenge.
Yeah, that's fine, I just gotta see if there's any legal
They all know
latitude there.
better. Yeah, they know better.
You know, it's a unfortunate situation that happened because two people were drafting two documents.
Yeah, I
and
understand.
So,
Well, is there any, in other words, the document is complete and he likes the document except for this one word?
I haven't had that conversation.
I had that
That's what
conversation.
goes by me.
After I got the email from Roger Mumford, I called Steve immediately, I couldn't get a hold of Roger. He's okay with the entire resolution other than putting cash up. He's not gonna put cash up.
Roy, I got a question. Let's say, well, no, that's just the town board report, that was a mistake. And
Well, it just says a performance bond, it doesn't say
The-
letter of credit or anything, it's just a performance bond. To cash performance.
I certainly see your point. I map judgment, something like this. I got money. I would present it.
Well, we agreed. Mark,
Yeah,
we did.
Just pull it and give it.
Yeah, just get the team across today. Sure. Roger.
Yeah, I got it 15,
Yeah.
so,
Right, okay.
all right, so we're okay. Okay, we have to discuss the removal of the Arcadia water storage removal. Doug, I think you said you were gonna go to Lassa Canara, Tony, and
I
see.
did. Went out, sat down with him, and I compared this one to remove 2 tanks from the Twain Park about 5 or 6 years ago. He said, Doug, this is totally different. This is a huge tank. Those were small ones. I could pull them over and we could kind of crush them and put them on tractor trucks along the way. He said, today, you have to cut them up so you can stack it on the trucks and haul through. Otherwise, they won't peg it. One is or they'll charge you. So I said, okay, well, that just, I didn't know if it was just out of the sky, pulling numbers. No, it's good. So then I came back and talked to Christine, and his number exceeds the bid number.
Right.
So we would have to go out to competitive bids. But I have no problem with what he said. I mean, he knows what he's talking about. And it wasn't arbitrary. It was just compared to the other two that have been there for 30 years. They were easy. I remember it on the bin. Okay.
Well, versus the $500, right, the insurance policy.
I didn't.
And leave it there.
Yeah, I mean, almost just something that we want to leave there long term.
Well, I'm not
Definitely
saying
an
that,
accident
but
wouldn't happen.
eventually you'll have to come down to. That was the other part, right? I mean, I don't know what we were talking about. Those are the two options.
Well, I think maybe we can get some ideas. Are prices for this kind of work gonna go up? Or are they gonna come back down? They gonna level off? I don't know. I don't know this stuff.
Well, that's probably a number of those things.
Well, I mean, let's say we keep it for 5 years, but otherwise.
Everything goes up over 5 years.
Yeah.
We know that.
So we would, Christine, we have to go out the door on this because of why?
Over 35 dollars.
Right, but we're buying it off the county bid. So he has the county bid for all work.
For removing the water.
I think so, everything, but I can check on that, I don't know, Sean, you.
His number is 38,000.
The county bid I'm familiar with is county bid for emergency services for water main repair or
Right.
sanitary sewer repair. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if this is considered an emergency repair and you want to pay emergency prices. You always have the option to put it out to bid, get a bid, and then compare it to that, and almost shop around with the county bid. But there's no contract that I'm aware of where they have demolition of.
Right.
And
So then, so that being the case, what do we want to do? We want to just pay the insurance policies for another year?
Well, let's just go out for bid.
Go out for bid.
So then we have to make it a good bid.
We have to authorize Sean to write the bid.
Yes.
That's what I think we ought to do. And he might be coming in the low one of the.
Might come in the low one
I
anyway.
was gonna say, I mean, 38,000, to go out to bid for something like that, I know that you have to, but
We have to, yes,
it's really, it's just such a small margin,
it is.
you know.
I agree.
What's the threshold?
35.
So if he comes in at 34,999, we're good?
We probably still need another
No.
I'm just joking.
You know, this is a municipality. This is not a private business.
So is everybody in agreement that we're gonna have Sean prepare a bid for this?
Are we paying for it? Where's the money coming from?
We'll figure that out. Yeah,
Where's the money coming from? What?
we take it down.
Arcadia,
That's gotta be a special.
35 is not a big number.
Okay.
Arcadia or Delaware's money when they get it for us.
Why don't we table it? This doesn't have
Yeah,
to be
but
done
ballpark
today.
figures was plus.
Usually it becomes an emergency.
But it is.
Maybe next month.
No.
7,000.
Might be next month.
So,
Yeah, 2,500, somewhere in that ballpark.
Sean, what is the Board of Health's position on this? They just wanted us to eliminate it from,
You're satisfied with the Board of Health? They wanted
Satisfied.
a physical disconnection from the distribution system, which was done months ago.
No, it's all ours.
okay. But we have to up the insurance policy, right?
Well, that's what I had heard. I heard
$500.
$500 a year.
It's already covered under the insurance policy, I'm trying to get it removed.
Oh, okay.
Ah,
right.
Oh,
All right, we're gonna table it.
okay, I like the way you think.
Okay, information, we have a public hearing for introduction law number 5, was rescheduled for the December 19, 2022 meeting. And review the employee manual for board approval at the next meeting. So everybody's got a draft from Mary. You recall getting it? Okay. Going through it, any issues?
You got one too, Ricky.
I made 2 of them.
I gave it to you 3 months ago.
Good.
There you go, Ricky. There's your-
Oh, I don't have any answer. It was, I think it was.
I think you credit for reviewing it.
What?
Yeah, no, I don't know.
Probably what happened.
Mary,
I'm good.
I spoke to you this afternoon about that. I can, I don't have a copy. Yeah, it's page 33 and 34.
There you go.
I'll give that 5 minutes.
I can look at this some other time. 33. It says medical insurance buyout. Now it says here, at the bottom of the page, to receive a cash payment in lieu of receiving such health insurance coverage equal to 25% of what the cost would be to the town of Goshen to provide health insurance coverage to such employee. So if it's a single rate, if it's a family rate. That's what that says. Then if you go to number 3 on the next page, 34, it talks about the same thing, and it says utilizing the base figure of the premium amount due to the health insurance coverage for a single person under the plan then in effect in the town of Goshen. So they're saying a single plan versus what it should be, depending on what you were, your family and your friend. And I think what we're doing now is not that, it's on 34, we're doing it, it's on page 33. So it's just the same.
What have we been doing, Kristen?
Whatever, based on whatever plan the employee is eligible for.
No, what I'm saying is that, if they're going to get the buyout, single, husband and wife, or family of 4, how we've been paying for those 3?
Based on what they would be eligible for.
So we're paying for based on, okay.
I think originally when they did that, I'm gonna be the pariah. I didn't think it was right. There's an incentive, if you have insurance, the incentive is, we will pay you 25% of a single premium. And that's just found money because you have your own insurance.
Right.
To say, well, that's not quite enough, we want to be paid based on, because we have a family, and that person that works for us does not have a family, so he's going to get less than his insurance. I mean, it was a nitpicky thing, and I just felt it wasn't fair to the taxpayers down. You're getting 25% anyway. So if you're going to turn around and say, well, it's not quite enough, I'm going to take your insurance and have both. then I think there's an ethical problem, so. The amount, I think it should be a set amount, period. And that's what it is, 25% paid premium. And I know, when I was on the board last time, we went through this whole thing. It was just, that's how I felt, I still feel that way. But I'm not sure how anybody else feels.
Well, for the cost of medical insurance today,
Yeah,
okay, deductibles and all the other things that go in that HRA,
Yeah.
that's getting to be a big number. And so if they're in another plan, it's a moneymaker for them, you know.
it's free money for
And,
anybody.
Right.
That's, it has another plan that's covering. But that was just my feeling. And it's not, maybe not popular. It's people that have family plans and want a higher payout than the person that takes a seat. But I think the payout is the payout.
Well, that's why I asked, we've been doing this all along,
And
a single, a double, and then a family, so I mean, it's.
This is kind of a gray area, don't you? I don't know. Right, just take a look at A. You take a look at A. Give me your thoughts on, you know, yeah, that's where you said, you know, it talks about the employee, but it doesn't tell you what category the employee is, it just says the employee. It is a great.
Yeah, that's on 33.
33. Yeah, A on the bottom. Give me your opinion on whether that says it's just the employee or the plan the employee would be on if they had a family.
I don't see anything that entire plan specific, it seems to be 40 centric.
But it says something like it would cost the town to provide that insurance. Does it say something like that? So then it would be, if it was a family, it would be a family plan, if it was a single, it would be a single.
If I was the employee, I would argue it one way, if I was the town, I would argue it the other way, so.
right, now I'm arguing on behalf of the town.
Understood.
Well, I think I'm arguing on the fact that what you would like to do is provide enough incentives so that people would take this. Because there's a huge difference between if this person says, well, hey, maybe the provider is not really working, therefore I'm gonna take the insurance.
The difference is that maybe if the buyout is 5,000, the difference is 5,500. So
I would say this-
the extra $500. I'm sorry.
No,
Go ahead, yeah.
I think if, as I'm digesting this, my reaction would be more in favor of the employee than the town's argument, because it's a percentage based, so if it wasn't, you would just lay out the number.
Right.
It's got to tie to it's percentage based because it's based on the plan. Otherwise, it would just be a straight number, but that's a reaction to it. So I'd say it would be favorable to the employee on the interpretation, not the town, as far as the amounts. Based on the individual or the family.
So that's why I asked the question, what have we been doing? We've got a precedent since 2013.
Yeah, but precedent's not gonna outweigh a written contract. So it may, if someone challenged it, saying that's all.
Since October of 2015, just to remind the conversations on this one, we had a discussion. I guess it was never a meeting period as far as the ministers. We had a discussion and what we did. Right, am I speaking to this matter?
Yeah.
Get it out and get it on. So, to answer your question about what's been done since October of 2015, to my understanding, is just as I was saying, if you had a family plan, the buyout was 25% of the family plan. If it was a single, then you get 25% of it. That's been done since October of 2015 or even prior.
I thought, I mean, I was an employee in a different capacity and it was a number, it was just a number. It was, you didn't take it as a judge. Here's your $5,000, whatever, stipend back. It didn't matter what, in my experience, it didn't matter what plan, as the employee. That speaks differently on this concept.
The way I would interpret the offer, and that's what we do, is if you don't take our insurance, we would give you 25% of a single person's
Yeah.
plan, whatever that is, for anyone that doesn't take insurance, that is your incentive,
Sure.
period.
Right.
And that's a standard thing, rather than go percentages and like, am I supposed to get more or less? This is an incentive not to take insurance, because you don't need it.
Right.
This is money found that you don't, to nitpick over, well, I should get a little bit more. I don't know, but that's, I'm just telling you how I feel. And what I would do is,
It's gonna come to a vote, so we're gonna have to come. to a
well,
vote.
yeah, fine, I understand that. Well, no, the whole thing is gonna come to a vote. You're still working on.
Well, the issue that we have is, right, we have to make that determination in that policy, and then we have to go back and let's just say for argument's sake, we follow your rule of thought. And I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with it, but we follow your rule of thought, which is 25% of an individual. Well, there's a lot of people that are getting much more than that right now. So they're gonna take that reduction. Just saying, they're gonna take a huge reduction on
One
that.
of the interesting things, like, if you're, how are you determining their eligibility? Everybody's gonna take a percentage of what they could max out for a kid, and say, I would have been eligible for a family plan. But they may not have. How are you determining what their plan would be, what they're eligible for?
I don't know what the process is here. What I've done in my previous life was they had to supply the insurance that they had, and whatever that coverage was, we gave them. So they couldn't go out and say, I have a family plan, and then come in and say,
That's
here's
what
my
I was getting
individual plan.
Right, right,
So you have to prove what plan you have.
got it.
Well, it's something that we're gonna
I
have to,
haven't changed since 2013 when I was on the board.
What before?
You know, that was always my approach. I just found money. Anyway.
But since 2013, that's not the way it's been done. What has been done is wherever you qualify for, single, double, or family. That's what we got, and of course, the out is the police. The police get 50% of the buyout. And that's their contract, and that's what we negotiated. So,
I'm negotiating now.
well, it's, I mean,
I really do.
there's only one person on, actually, there's two people on, right?
Negotiation.
Nigel and Rami.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so I think, as I said before, that it's something that's been done in the past, and we should extend it on with what we have been doing since prior to 2013.
no, it was in, it was fine, I was. That position then.
Do we have the ability to change the handbook to say what Phil wants to say on all future employees, but grandfather everybody in as to where they are without any legal repercussions?
Sure. So that's what we're doing, that's what we're doing now with MVD, in the CCA. The newest employees are paying 10% premium.
What, I mean, you know, I'm indifferent to it either way. I mean, I understand where you're coming from. I understand where you're coming. What I have a problem with, I have to tell you, is them getting a percentage of the HRA. Because the HRA is a benefit that you get if you have a deductible that you paid on something. Not every employee is getting it. So my argument could be is, I get the insurance, but I haven't had a claim in 2 years. Why am I not getting my 5% of the HRA?
That was in 2013, that was also one of the contention.
So,
the same.
For me, that's a difficult thing. The HRA portion of it is a very difficult thing because there are people that have, you know, they have no ailments, they don't have any deductibles all year long. So they're not really using the policy, and that's great. They're healthy people. Don't get me wrong. But you have other healthy people now that are getting 5% of that that maximum HRA of 13,500 on a family and 6,900 on a, what do you call that? One, I'm not even sure that's legal, but aside from that, that's my problem. You know, I don't think it's fair because if I was not sick and I was an employee here, I'd be saying, I want my 5%.
Right.
Why am I not entitled to my 5%? So that would be my only problem.
Yeah,
I mean,
if someone,
Oh, sorry.
yeah, no, go ahead.
You can call, I think there's no reason you can't chop it up however you want. as to what the percentage is offered. So if you wanted to pull that out, I don't see any reason why you couldn't designate the 25%. It's an awful percent of the average.
So, okay,
Just a straight 25%.
25% of the premium, no HRA,
That's what
all new employees going forward as of. What do you vote on?
The question is, are you gonna pull the HRA out of the current employees' salaries, or are they grandfathered in on that part?
I'd have a problem with that, because I think you're opening up,
What
I
is
think
that?
you open up Pandora's box now that I brought it up, that somebody's gonna say, well, I can get 5%, I
What
don't
is
even
that
use the
work
damn
out?
thing.
What is 5%?
That's 5% is the maximum number, that's what the benefit is.
Simple $345 annually for double of the $600.
690.
So if I don't get sick all year long, can I have my 690?
Yeah.
Is it a bad argument?
No,
I, not the way you presented it, no. But
And-
And I think your suggestion though is that, all new employees going forward, we change the rules for all, just like we did with in the CSEA, when we negotiated that, we said all new employees are gonna have to pay 10% of the premium. And that's what they're doing. And, we didn't ask everybody in the past to pay 10%, so this might fit in that same.
and in addition to that, the guy that gets married a month after he comes back and says, you know what, I'm married. And I'm really entitled to this, so you better change the plans and change, I mean, a straight 25%. That's your incentive.
25% of the premium.
Right.
But
But anyway.
again, your point is the premium being the lowest of the premium, the individual, the
Based on the
baseline,
policy, yeah.
right? And you're talking about whatever policy you have, which is one. of
I'm
three.
talking about grandfathering in what we have right now, minus the HRA. I'd like to see that eliminated completely. You know, anybody that's getting it, because I just think that opens up all different avenues of people complaining, and I would be one of them complaining about it.
So going forward, you don't have.
Just have to remember what this is all about. This is the incentive, not to carry double insurance. It's an incentive. It's $5,000, $6,000, $8,000 that you really,
Taxpayers are paying.
they're paying, and it's just down money. You know what I'm saying?
So
That
if you can get-
beneficiary,
if you
I
can-
understand.
Yeah, okay,
You can give us a legal determination on what do we do with that.
Yeah, I mean, right off of, my instinct is yes, but I'm gonna give you a firmer answer on it. The HRA part, I gotta look at, and I gotta understand whether the board is tying it to the lowest policy or to whatever policy you have.
Well,
We only have one
me personally,
No,
moving,
family, saying that,
Oh,
plan, sorry.
me personally moving forward, I would say, I would agree with Phil on that. Moving forward, all employees, it's 25% of the premium of an individual plan.
I can't
Let's see what you're on.
and I can't imagine anybody that would say, nah. Yeah, just give me the insurance. I don't want $5,000, $6,000, $8,000. It doesn't make any sense.
Not when that.
You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't. But
Yeah, I'll fix something. Sorry, Doug.
You said, yeah, he agrees, I agree, so I think we.
Good.
George, but the rest of us agree with it.
So,
George,
I
agree,
really- I
but-
think-
if it's grandfathered in Georgia,
Yeah.
guess what? They will definitely agree to me.
So I'll present some language once I can kind of get my head wrapped around it. But I mean, that's one piece of a pretty significant value. Is there others?
I have no other issue, I have no other issues with the draft agreement. Do you have what?
I gave.
George gave me
I sat
some,
down with Mary,
yeah,
we
which
made
we
all the changes
incorporated.
that
They should be in there already. then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so I'll focus on that. I'll have something for you guys that's leading up. to
The I'm sorry, the only other thing I wanted the board to think about is sick time in the policy manual for town employees. There's no incentive, they're burning through sick time all the time. Like some places will pay you 25% of your sick time upon.
What's what's the school, New York State school, you teacher, right?
Yeah.
So what do they get?
Okay,
It was 50 cents on the dollar or something?
No, it's scattered all over the districts, have all places and different things. But when I retired from Newburgh, I think I had like 150 days or something like that. And they paid you $1 fee. So in other words, and it wasn't a tremendous amount. If I recollect, I think it was $75.
Per day?
$75 per day. But of course, you had some people who burned up their time and got nothing, and there were other people who had a lot of time, and all of it was capped. It was capped.
Well,
It's capped at
yeah,
the
'cause I
number of
think
Like
days.
a number.
That
Yeah.
should be in our, that should be part of the manual.
It's
Well,
not
I
in
think-
here, so I'd like to try, like, maybe
Used to
come
be.
up with, maybe come up with something and look at that. before-
Just say we'll bank so many days, like George said. I think it's one thing to do.
I think we need
That
to look
was
at the
for
cap.
retirement, Bill, that we.
In
for
addition to
retirement.
income,
We didn't put out a dollar amount.
What do we please,
not a dollar,
Yeah,
it's a number of days.
yeah, that's state law.
I know the CSEA, it can be applied towards their retirement.
Yeah.
Right,
So you get like an
Right.
extra day after year.
Yeah.
Right.
With the police, I don't remember. Bigger than what they did.
I just wonder if days, like, I think it's a certain amount of days.
I would have to look that up as far as. whether they-
So we have to address that. So
Yeah, it's just something for thought.
No, it's
If we're
good.
gonna adopt the manual, that's something else that needs to be looked at going
Yeah.
forward.
because what you have is somebody retiring and they got 80 days, they just, I'm sick.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
You're losing the
They
employee.
bank the 6 days.
It's a little bit more incentive, if you offer them a little bit of
A dollar amount per
a
dollar.
dollar amount.
It's like a trade-in dollar amount.
So are you talking about people who just retire, or are you talking about people who just leave our
Yeah.
service?
Annually or?
It would be both.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Because I think.
Somebody got really hurt that left our service. He was a dedicated employee and he left, I don't know how many days. on the Gosh. Oh, God. He had like 6 months of sick time
Sick time.
that you completely lost.
That's the only one.
Yeah, so there's no incentive for people. They burn through their sick time and they're using it as vacation time.
So are you saying like on a yearly basis then?
No.
No,
just
the
on
time of
separation.
retirement.
Either separation. or
Separation.
retirement.
Separation or time.
Well, the retirement part of it is kind of taken care of, as opposed to when you retire.
Right,
But
but sometimes you'll have some left over.
True.
You know, if you've been here
But like
20
Taj,
years.
he lost it completely. But when out of service, he should get X amount of dollars each day that he had.
Right.
That's reasonable.
So we just have to come up with a number.
Yeah.
Where we all
Yeah.
feel comfortable.
And now it's almost 7:30.
Yeah, we've got 5 minutes and then we can start the.
Anybody need a break?
Yeah, one page that is missing there. This is all of- this is your whole,
Yeah.
thing.
Oh, you got that? Raleigh?
How are you?
Good.
What's
So use that too.
Yeah.
Different stations. Takes a shot, each shot. Alex is down
That's why it was-
Release pheasants?
Oh, yes,
Yeah, so they.
Yeah, well, we gotta pay for those. Yeah, oh, yeah, pheasants. Yeah, we went down the door.
Just gotta go to the back of that.
They're all
We're on the agenda.
They're all federated, you can literally see. the dog playing
Doing his
over,
dog,
you see
yeah.
it. And then the guy got the dog, has to shoot it. Then you gotta wait for it to fly away far enough to shoot it. My brother was that's my There's a harvest they have. Yes.
Yeah.
I took 40 pounds of breast milk. Like a little sausage. Italian sausage. Very strong, delicious. Right.
I know. On the street.
That's what I was waiting for, that.
That's everything else.
Right?
Yeah.
That's right, I was yeah, just got in from Augusta. Oh, that's right. Yeah, right.
You guys always. Yeah.
You tried? Just try turning it on. Otherwise.
Yeah, one for us and one for them. You can see that one.
Okay, that's the PowerPoint. No. No.
This is good. This is the one.
Yeah, the first time we were here in September, we made some changes. So I believe this is our line. It's.
Well, I don't want to distract anymore.
But if she, let's say September, if you have a September date.
No, December, so. December.
Oh, here's what it's. Yes. Oh, what's the same thing? Okay.
Yeah, so these are not, so they're.
Maybe joining it. Yeah, probably. I'm sure. So one hand out tonight.
So. Forward. Backward. And then you. Move it down. Topping down.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I extended the population.
Yeah, you're talking about Mary. Like, why didn't you-
Jonathan, help us a second. What do you think about this? Guys, sorry. This is the reason I started this whole problem. Yeah.
I'm trying to link it together. So.
So these are just the memory.
So those are, that goes back to, that plugs into the HDMI one, that's just the, it goes to the computer, but I'm not getting the other one. That one. It's on that. So it's in
Yeah.
It worked and then it stopped.
Oh, it did?
Yeah.
Not today.
Thank you, right?
Big deal.
There it is.
Yeah, there's a
That works.
piece that I wanted to do.
No, I don't know. I know. That would be single.
All right,
Yeah,
John,
I'm not sure yet.
and
Sorry,
Jack.
hard to do on the fly.
Did you still have food for the ice cream?
Yeah, well, I was trying to extend.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah.
It's all right, Jonathan.
Sorry,
I
a little
thought,
more
yes,
time maybe, but
Thank you.
if they're called you for it.
I would have been here.
Yeah, this one right here.
Well, you got it in front of you too. The paper is what they have.
Oh, the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you can go big right through the
Okay.
I didn't realize.
Sign out.
I guess so, they're commiserating. All right, we're back on. First item, item number 7, Delaware Engineering presentation on the comprehensive plan review. Guys are up.
All right. My name's Tracy. Do you guys need to see this a little bit
Yeah,
better?
we're good, we got the,
If you can turn it just a hair, then I don't have to. That's gonna work, that's gonna work, that's really great.
Okay.
Can everybody else see it? No.
You should hang on the street.
Yeah.
That's why we don't do that one.
Sure. So good evening, everyone. My name is Mary Beth Bianconi. I'm a partner with Delaware Engineering. With me tonight are my colleagues Tracy Letter and Mike Aiello. And we've been working with the town now for the past about 6-7 months on a comprehensive water and sewer master plan for the community. We were here back a couple months ago and did a very similar presentation. We're gonna kind of hit the highlights tonight because a lot of this is the same presentation, but certainly if anyone has questions or needs additional information, we can go over it. For the interest of time, the last time we kind of did, all three of us spoke. We're gonna let Tracy kind of run the show, run through everything and get really to the meat of this discussion, which is about what are our recommendations and what would the potential impact of the community be from those recommendations, if that makes sense. Okay. Tracy, thanks.
before you start, so I can just say, for the audience, normally we wait till the end of the meeting for comments, but as soon as this is over, anybody that's here for the work, the master plan review will allow to open the floor to anybody that wants to speak.
Okay, so as Mary Beth said, we were here in September and we walked through a little bit more in detail some of the options you have for changing rates. We discussed the option for consolidating an administrative consolidation of the water districts together into one district. It makes things a lot easier for administration and budgets. So what is the water sewer master plan? Town has infrastructure, provides the benefits for the community. We're talking tonight about a master plan for both water as a water districts and sewer as sewer districts. In order to have a plan, help you reduce emergency repairs, which are more costly than maintenance, improve drinking water quality, reduce user costs in the long term. If you've got a plan and you've got a process, it's easier to maintain costs, increase your efficiency and keep that sustainable system going longer term. Okay, basic short here, you've got 4 different water districts, they all pay different rates. Sewer districts, there's 2, they both feed sewer to the village. This is descriptions of the sewer. Got maps up here. Oh, and I should say too, after our September meeting, we did some edits, we got some more information and we produced the November report, which we sent to the board, so that's what we're going to. Map of the water districts. This map is also in the engineering report, and it also shows some of those options for interconnections. One of the changes that we made from the first engineering report to this one is looking at costs in a different way. We looked at standalone costs. So for Hambletonian, what does Hambletonian need to be up to date? And Arcadia and Stonehenge and Scottsdale, sorry, I'm missing. So each of those as a standalone component, these are what they need to meet, contact time, water redundant, you don't want to have a backup plan immediately. Several of the different components that they need. So we put those together, looking at, and that's what the costs are up here. This is different from the slide we showed in September for the same idea, because we just grouped things differently. So water supply would be that you need resilience. If your well goes down over here and you don't have a backup well here in Scotchtown, what do you do? And then we do have engineering recommendations for those types of things, and these are the costs that Mike came up with. This chart shows the total costs for all 4 water districts together.
Do you want comments while you're doing this, or wait till always?
We wait till we're done with that, because there'll be more other things I can look up or forward you to different pages or whatever we need to. CT compliance has to do with disinfection. Auxiliary power, a lot of these systems don't have a backup generator available in case power goes out. Some of these are health department requirements, some of them are strong recommendations. Operations of the well in terms of filtering and water quality and the storage capacity. So those are all of the 4 different districts. If you were to correct all of these standalones, that would be the final cost, be 2.8 million. Same thing with the sewer. In this case, what we're recommending in the first phase is collection system and I&I project plans. You have to take a look at what you've got, where your issues are. We were able to verify that there has been close to 3,000 feet of sewer relining and CCTV and inspections in the past. We had a hard time finding any actual documentation of where that actually was. So the recommendations basically stand here. The budgets that we put together for this are take your whole system, see what you need for hammering pipes. Yeah. Yeah. We don't have the footage, we have the costs. We weren't given what street was done. It's just very general. So I'm gonna interrupt you for 2 seconds. Explain to everybody I&I and why do we care? Okay, big thing for I&I, infiltration and inflow. You are paying, well, the sewer districts are paying to the village the cost of transmitting the wastewater and paying the village to treat the wastewater. If there's pipe breaks, old pipes, connections to the sewer that are from stormwater, when it rains, maybe your roof drains into the sewer by mistake, on purpose, who knows? That's called infiltration and inflow. It's also groundwater coming up into broken pipes, bad joints. Over time, ground shifts, pipes shift. That extra water goes to the village, and the sewer districts are paying for treatment of that extra water. So that's part of why costs are very high. There's a lot of indication, and Mike could, talk to this more in detail if we need. Stopping that or preventing that, cutting it down to the maximum extent practical, is saving you money and preventing future breaks that cost more money to fix as an emergency and maintenance. So that's why we're saying that that's a really important part of keeping costs down and maintaining your infrastructure. This cost estimate here is basically for doing those sorts of investigations to determine exactly what you need to do moving forward as an infrastructure.
The entire both systems,
Both of them together, yeah,
that's the cost?
yeah. That's to do, so that's Tracy
Oh,
to do what?
This is to, do I and I,
So it's 172,000.
there we go.
There you go.
I can't drive. Do I have to drive here?
No.
Never mind.
You can drive
Um,
anywhere.
So for the collection system inspection, and then there are 400 linear feet of the sewer main that does need to be repaired. So for both systems, that's here. Mike, which district is that needs to be repaired? Okay.
And the 172, Tracy, includes clean the system, televise it,
Yeah.
which ends up with literally pictures that you can watch of what the condition inside the pipe is, right? What else does that cover?
Smoke testing as needed, and, basic.
Manhole- manhole inspection.
Manhole
Manhole
inspection.
A lot of that work has been done, so.
There was a lot of CCTV done. Again, we could not determine exactly where, so there's an estimate. So if we find those videos,
We rebuilt,
great.
we rebuilt all of the manholes.
we didn't find that.
Yeah, so that's the kind of the purpose of this, is to go document all that stuff, right? So obviously, we're not gonna redo something that was already done. It's perfect, it's great. But what we can say, and I think we do see this, is we see it financially, right? We see that when it's dry, the water that's going to the village is some number. When it rains, it's some number, a lot more. So that's coming from someplace, so the purpose of
We
this
have I&I.
money
I&I.
is to go identify that, right?
Exactly.
But we've done the manhole, we did a smoke test, and we went around house to house, disconnected. the
Right.
roof
Good.
leaders.
Sometimes that needs to be redone because people move in or change things or
Right.
whatever. So that would be part of it, is verifying when things were done and is it still relevant? Do we
Yep.
need to do it again because conditions change over time? But that would be an estimate if you had to do the whole thing.
So it may be less, in other words.
Yeah. Okay, so we did talk about this before. This hasn't changed really, that, the charges for the different levels of water use are really probably, overcharging people that are using less than the minimum. We talked about the option of changing that, graduated rate structure to be more in line with what people actually use. So 25% of the people use 7,000 or less. 50% use less than 12,000, 75% use less than 15,000. And the maximum up on this is usually about 57,000. So your rate minimum is set at 10 or 12. You're really 50% of your people are using less than that, and it works out to be too much. So we made some recommendations on rate structures, standardization of budgeting, and creating dedicated capital improvement funds to support future improvements. So you have a small charge every year, you build your capital fund, and you can go out and do projects with less of a hit at a time. And then consideration of consolidation into one water district. They don't have to be connected, the pipes don't have to connect, but in terms of administering them, you lump the whole budget together. How much personnel do you need? How many chemicals do you need? What regular operation and maintenance changes out to repairs or equipment are you dealing with on an annual basis? Put that all together and split that out evenly between all the users, because the benefit is the same. You want good quality water, you want good pressure, that sort of a thing. So in the end, it worked out. So yeah, these were just the different rate structures that we talked about. I think we were recommending a fee plus consumption, so that part of your budget that doesn't change. If your cost for personnel or specific items do not change, no matter how much water is produced or consumed, that part of the budget is divided equally among users. Every customer pays a portion of that fee because it doesn't change depending on how much water is used. You have to have people there. That's the idea. You get to decide how you want to divide that budget. Then the rest of the budget in terms of operation and maintenance would be based on how much water each customer uses. So that's one of the things we talked about, is something you might want to consider. Okay, so then for consolidation, this is how it would basically affect customers. On the top is water districts. So for the average water user in each water district, for a consolidation fee, example of that, fee structure for fixed costs, at $168.50. And then a charge, a use charge of $7.61 per 1,000 gallons. These are what the current district users would be paying if this was all consolidated in one budget. So your total annuals would be here for each of the users that are in these current districts, but it, you know, it would all be one consolidated district. And this is how that varies. And this is with adding the cost, and this is one of the things that we found since September, is that the town owns an AMI software for meters that improves the performance of your water meters. They need to change out the meters in the homes. So our recommendation for that would be for 6 years, have everyone pay a specific amount every year, and then over that time period, you change out this many meters this year, this many meters the next, until everyone's meters are changed out, and then that cost goes away. Then down here on sewer, we did consolidation, you have a consolidated fee for that fixed cost fee, and then a gallon, you know, rate per 1,000 gallons. Sewer capital would replace, you know, looking at the INI, this is just that investigation value. We would be not reinstituting the current INI costs until you had some actual projects. But we do recommend that you look at the possibility of doing a specific project in the near future based on the studies that you do or based on current knowledge, and say, we need to fix this section, and you get a cost for that specific section, and you start with a reserve fund charge that fits up to that. Raises that amount of money in a certain amount of years.
Right, so one of the things that we should point out, right, is so today, what folks are paying in the water districts doesn't include like a future plan to spend money to improve water quality, right? So these costs that we're seeing are taking that into account, that 2.1, was that the number, 2.1 million? 2.8 million dollars in improvements is what's reflected in these costs. So one of the things that we should point out is Hamiltonian and Arcadia are big districts relatively for the town. There's how many users in those? Couple hundred in each, 200 and something in each. The other two districts, Stonehenge and Scraptown, are extremely small, 40, 41, 45. So as separate, right, as separate districts right now, the town has no choice. If there's an improvement in Scotchtown, only people in Scotchtown pay for that improvement. So if you need something, really anything, and it's, by the way, the pipes and the ponds and everything are all exactly the same in all the districts, but the only people who can pay it are those just few people who live there. That makes it almost impossible to improve water quality because it's so hard to spend money without it just completely making everybody have to pay an enormous amount of money just to flush our toilet, take showers, have good water quality, which is one of the reasons why right now those two smaller districts pay a lot more, right, than everybody else, even though basically all the same water. The consolidation model sort of makes that all the same, right? So if you live in any of the districts and you are taking a shower, you're taking the same shower no matter where you live. You live in the town, you're taking a shower, you're not getting a greater benefit, a better shower, right? So the idea of consolidation is to make it so the districts are more sustainable economically. Investments can happen without completely hitting users incredibly hard, and then at the same time, my opinion, no matter what you're paying for water, you ought to be able to use it. And I think there's some existing water quality problems. If you're paying $200 or $500 or $5,000, your water quality problem, water's not worth anything to you. So the objective here is to improve water quality and create a financial system that makes this more sustainable going out in the future, because I can say that water systems, sewer systems are investments just like your house. Do not buy your house and assume you never have to put a roof on it. You don't buy your house and think you never have to upgrade, you know, your AC system, right? Or your well pump, right? This is not the last improvement that will ever have to be made. So the idea is to create, not only do the capital work that needs to be done, but also create a financial system that's sustainable over the long haul. The next time an improvement needs to be made, it's not a huge impact to users. It's a very manageable amount of money.
Right, and these, just to follow up on that. These costs up in standalone capital and what's a average homeowner would pay is based on market rate loans. And that's not the only way to fund this stuff. We also have a schedule up for when a lot of these loans for infrastructure grants are available, and the schedule for when those applications are in. Some of them are rolling. Some of them have specific timeframes that you have to be ready for an application. Final slide here. Yeah, here we go. So I think at this point, we've put together what we can at this stage. There's always other information to dig up. We do recommend that consolidation. You've got a lot more flexibility in the whole entire district. Everybody gets a benefit. You've got a much larger user base to spread costs. So then you'd want to begin that process and have consolidation done in time to be applying for grants and the loan programs that are available from various agencies for next summer when a lot of this comes up. So either way, if you're going to consolidate and do this all with regular financing, you want to be looking at the same type of schedule. Consolidation would have to be done first. And that involves a specific report that a lot of this has already been done, but it's called the map plan and report, and it has to be done in a specific way. There's also legal aspects to this on listing specifically which parcels are included, a determination of geographic form, and it's a process. But that would have to go first if that's something you're going to do before you go for grants and loans.
And consolidation is considered get pluses, get gold stars in the process of competing for grants and loans. Because the state and the agencies that give out this money see a lot of benefit to reducing all of these individual small systems into larger systems that are more economically sustainable. So it gives you a leg up.
Are you ready to comment?
Yep,
I think
that's
that's
it. So yes.
I'd like to start with Scottown Water District. I was in my office, just having a good time in there, and I got a call from the health department. And I went over there and they had a chair for me. And they had the head of the department just shoot up and down one side. There's an older fellow, this is whatever her name was, Dr. Second. Town of Goshen doesn't know that. It's owned by the private, the guy who built the houses out there. Also, she backed door straight away. Well, we took it over. We replaced the water tank. We paid cash. Now, we went out and put in a couple extra hydrants. We did a lot of things and paid cash. We didn't borrow money.
Right.
And the cost came down, and we started building fund balances. Okay? Now, the one thing that Sean and I talked about a couple of weeks ago, we have a backup well out there. I thought the thing had been used and switched in and out, but it hadn't been. Well, we can fix on that. But beyond that, we've done a lot of things. That's running like a scalded dog out there.
Yeah, I've seen the history that a lot of work has been done, but I just want to point out to
No,
the board
I understand.
members that there is an infrastructure analysis with the up-to-date and the latest DOH inspections here that find what they're talking about.
Okay. Stonehenge, we've been saving money. Now, we did put a well in. We pay cash. That's how we do it. We pay cash, put the well in, put the pump in. We found out the new well that went in had groundwater contamination, so we fixed that. And then, but meantime, we had it already volume checked. But since we did all this, the Department of Health said, well, you got a volume check again, that's $25,000. I said, screw the hell with that. What we're gonna do is just wait, we have to put it online, and we'll put it online. And we're saving money to put the tank in, and again, pay cash.
Any of this that you decide to do and can pay cash, you're able to.
Well, we would
the
get
example-
balances in.
Right. The example was just your worst case scenario on what the cost would be and what it would be as it might develop.
I'm assuming putting this all together so that the residents of Campbelltonian Park don't have to look at groundwater as well as Arcadia Hills don't have to look at groundwater, to bathe in them and drink them. There's a specific number. We probably don't have the cash to do that. So has anybody put a cost estimate together? What it's gonna be?
That's in here and some specific charts with those costs and what our estimate would be at this point, yeah.
So, so based on that, do we know what you think we would qualify grant wise, or we have to file?
Right, so the way the grant process works, all roads lead to an engineering report. This engineering report will be used to build that engineering report, state has standards for what goes in there. You do have, because you have these letters from the Department of Health that Doug has mentioned, and that Tracy's included here, that actually makes you more competitive to receive financing. So the state offers financing both in terms of loan and grants. If you have your own cash and you just want a grant, you can do that as well. One of the things the state does do is they say if you've shown that you need to spend X dollars and the grant is usually some percent of that, they don't unfortunately give you all of the money, you have to show how you're gonna pay for the balance, right? That just kind of makes sense. They don't want to commit their money if they don't know that the project can be done. So if you have cash, we've worked with a couple of communities that have actually had the money and have just got their own cash, that's great. Move forward, perfect. If you don't have cash, you have to come up with another means of covering that difference. With the drinking water program, one of them is up to 65% or 60% of qualified costs of a project up to $3 million. I think the total project we were talking about was $2.8 million, so 60% of 2.8, and then you need to show that you have, or however, whichever project you chose to do, but that's basically the process. So on the face of it, you qualify for all of the grants because you know you're a public water supply and you have these issues. Some of the programs are focused on those among us who can afford to pay for things the least. This community is not income qualified in that respect, right? Some of your neighbors are, some of your neighbors have access to more grant opportunities because the money is set aside for residents who can't afford to pay for these. The metric that's used is the census information, and your census values in the community here are relatively high compared to some of your neighbors. So there are some grants that are focused on public health. That would be the grants that we would go after for your.
To us, the grant pool would be a lot smaller.
It's
Because
just a
of
different
our,
grant pool, right?
right, it'd be a lot smaller. It's done such a good job. Financially.
Well, it's
Well,
more
it's good. No,
about,
I understand, I'm just.
it's not about the town's ability, it's literally about who lives
We
in the
understand. I
houses.
understand.
Yeah,
So, next question is, can we mix and match? Can we do just one district, let's say, the sewer districts? Or look at where we have the biggest problem and possibly do those.
yep, you sure can, yep, absolutely.
Can we reverse the process if it's not, how difficult? If it's not working, how difficult would it be to reverse the process? Or once you ring the bell,
In terms of the consolidation,
yeah,
so the consolidation is done under John Municipal Law, Article 17A. It used to be done under the town law, and a number of years ago, our former governors decided that they should try to make consolidations easier by streamlining the process.
right.
As Tracy said, the consolidation process involves, interestingly, you guys now have the 4 water districts, 2 sewer districts. Those are all actually considered separate and unique forms of municipal government. So you have lots of governments. You guys are the administrative head of all of those. If you do one of these consolidations, you're making you deal with yourselves, town board, and then the town board acting as the commissioners of the Hamiltonian Water District. You're making you deal with yourself that basically said that consolidation is in the public's interest. And that for a variety of reasons, this is the right thing to do. To go from a separate districts to a consolidated district and then somehow peel them apart you would have to go through a dissolution process and then recreate something else. I will say I've been doing this for a really long time. We do a lot of district consolidations for folks who are in exactly this situation. The math is the math. So it's very rare. And like in my experience, never. If you get to a point where consolidation, where you guys are considering a consolidation, it makes sense by the numbers, it's not gonna be something you're gonna undo because it's that overwhelmingly positive for people to do. It would be very difficult to say that this is not a good idea. If it's not a good idea, then the consolidation shouldn't happen.
So that's why we've laid out these options in the report. There are several options for simply changing your rate structure. There are some differences in how the districts are charged right now. There are ways that you can make your administrative process easier if they're all, if they're similar. So that can be done without consolidating. So yeah, there are different options within the report, short of consolidation, just improving your process and your administration and the ability of
All the separate projects are all listed out.
and it's always a good option to have a reserve fund for what you know is coming down the road in terms of big infrastructure. And that was some smaller charges, charge people on an annual basis, and you build it up and you spread it up.
That's what
And
we
then you
do.
have that. So I mean, those are the types of
So-
recommendations that are in here as well. You can pick.
So without consolidation, then we jeopardize that grant loan period.
No, not
If we're not
necessarily,
consolidating.
not necessarily, but what you'll see when you go through the report is that the impact of spending these capital dollars on each of these districts separately
Right.
is substantially greater than if you consolidate them and spend the same dollars. It's a lot greater. It impacts the residents a lot more to do them as standalone projects than to do them all.
That's simply a cost. It's a pizza pie divided among four.
No, I understand, but if I'm the guy that only needs a little slice, and these guys need three slices in a pizza, I don't have to pay for all of it, and that's when we can start sensitive issues. So,
Yes.
oh, I'm looking for every option.
No, I agree. I mean, I look at it from this perspective. I would almost say this board, the previous boards have already done consolidation, because the only district we have sitting out there by itself are the people that live in Arcadia Hills. Hamiltonian Park is getting the benefit of Heritage, they're getting the benefit of Maplewood, getting the benefit of Youngs Grove, all of that district. So it's the poor 242 families that live in Arcadia Hills that are getting the full brunt of everything by themselves. So consolidation from my perspective, has already begun. We just need to finish it.
Well, and we have developers agreements, they're worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And they're, almost all of those are in Hamiltonian Park. Joe just said we put a lot of houses in. And the other thing we've done is Legoland spent $850,000 putting a sewer line to the village. Hamiltonian Park didn't have that. And so we've had all these things that we've been doing. And I think that maybe we need to redo the smoke in this and that, but we did have smoke. And we found out who was booked in. We went out to their house, had it inspected and all these things. Dennis Lindsay, HUM, and before that, start with your manholes. We went out and rebuilt all the manholes in Arcadia Hills Park. So there's some things that are major dollar. I don't know how long that lasts.
Right, exactly, right.
I mean, if it lasts 10 years, then I guess we gotta start over again.
So as a trial balloon, let's say we wanted to do this in phases, first the sewer district, because I think that would be the easiest.
I think so.
Because the village
Makes a
is
lot
the
of
sewer
sense.
district.
That makes
We've
a lot
done
of
an
sense.
awful lot of work on the sewer. district. And if we just, could we just look at that?
Yeah.
And say, okay, let's consolidate the sewer district. Well, this is a great deal, but it's helpful. It may not offset what we're thinking about. I don't.
They're administratively separate, and budget-wise are separate, so, but that's not uncommon. I mean, the one that we just worked on one for a town so that's one of the challenges you have here is your scale is really small. Even if we add up
Yes.
all of your users, we're still talking about what, 400, 300 users, 400 users.
Yeah.
It's 500.
Yeah.
It's 5 or 600.
So we just did
Yeah.
consolidation in a community in Sullivan where they had sewer districts, 5 water districts, 5 wastewater treatment plants, and the village contracts, whatever. We originally proposed doing that as 2 separate, do sewer consolidation separately and then do the water consolidation, and they said, this is a mess. We need to do it all at one time.
Right.
And it was 3 water districts. And 3 sewer districts. We
Thousand and
So,
about a neighbor in the 11,000-12,000 parcel range, but they were kind of having the same problem. They had a district with 17 houses in it. You literally cannot spend a dime there without burying them to death. Like even if you charge them and say, okay, I'm just gonna raise the cash, right? You need $300,000 to do a repair there. It's no longer takes to raise $300,000 to 17 houses. So the only solution was to consolidate them.
I agree. I mean, both sewer and water are a problem from my perspective, and I put it out there, and I look at Jonathan right now, and said, I think from his perspective, he'd like to bathe in clean water, and his kids would like to drink water out of the faucet. When you flush the toilet, it goes down, but from my perspective, I don't wanna add orthophosphate to their water, which is another chemical bad, and so we're sitting on a $200,000 grant that we got from Senator Scoop. So the pretense behind that was to put a green sand system in Hamiltonian Park. I know that you guys put together a perspective where we tie everything together, but have you looked at the possibility of utilizing that money and having 3 separate green sand systems in the 3 well houses?
Well, you would be putting separate systems in. What we're talking about for consolidation is just administratively.
No, what we talked about, and I think like you said, would be about $1 million, but I think you were talking about piping to one location and putting the green sand system in a
Oh, yeah. No, you're specifically referring to Heritage. Well, in our case.
Heritage is already done. It's already piped one location.
Hamiltonian. Right, Hamiltonian. Yeah, in that instance, it's always best to have a centralized treatment facility. It's the economy of scale, it's from just the efficiency of operation. Interconnecting it, you then have to offset what the cost of actually, interconnecting it. In Hamiltonian, you can relatively easily, affordably connect 2 of the wells. Well, I think it's well, one that sits in the middle, interconnecting that to a common treatment facility, which would be around the well 5 area, that might become, that complicates things. That's where you might actually have to have a separate, smaller filtration facility at that particular well. And then looking at Arcadia, I think it's really much better set up to justify a common central treatment facility, because you're not running supply lines down public streets, all kind of off the beaten path, and then some of the wells in question have just health and safety issues because of the flooding nature, whatnot. Pumping that all, whether you're have a filtration facility or just general basic treatment for disinfection, it's always in that instance, Arcadia kind of have a central facility up outside the flood zone.
So what we did in this report is look at infiltration and storage in Hamiltonian separate from Arcadia to come up with those costs. So you could be doing that separately as part of something else, but in terms of getting funding, and do you want to do consolidation in the long term? It might be more beneficial than you got all. So in the report, so when you guys go through it, there's a table, and it says, this one thing, here's the cost, this next thing here. So it gives you want to kind of do the cafeteria plan, you have the ability to do that. The one thing I will say is when you go through, and I think we provided this before, but you go through sort of the way the state does grants and awards and those kinds of things. The money from Senator Scoop is kind of a different type of funding, but if we're talking about this kind of water quality based like health. Like going to the state saying I need $300,000, they're gonna say you need to go raise $300,000. Those to attract grant funding, you're in the millions. It's not just because there isn't efficiency at the state to giving you $20,000 and giving the next guy $10,000. When you look at these awards, they are
$3 million, $4 million, $5 million. I mean, this is programs like we have a project, actually Tracy was on a call this morning with Project Open Sullivan in a community, it's not an enormous population, community. That's about $65 million sewer project in one location, 65 million. And they're in line to get a ton of grants. But that just kind of gives you the idea of scale. And so when we talk about all this stuff is competitive, you're competing against other people. So that community is going to go and say, we have an enormously expensive project that's being driven by aging infrastructure, regulatory requirements, increasing population that they really don't have a lot of control over for a variety of reasons, and a regulatory overlay that's incredibly stringent. So, and they have a very low income population. They're at the top list. So that's your competition, right? So you have to just think, like, if we, you know, and if you say, I know you guys really have a lot of experience with going and getting grants for these programs. If you're gonna say, you know what, because somebody asked me this as a meeting a couple weeks ago, and said, can we do this faster? And I said, yeah, you don't want to use other people's money, you can do it immediately. Adopt a bond resolution and go, or have the money in the bank and go. But if you want grant support to try to blunt some of the impact on your users, sort of you have to meet their desires, right?
So have you looked, what's the overall cost? Do you have an overall cost to fix the water and the sewer in a consolidated district?
Yeah, that's in here. So for the water district, I think the total for just the standalone projects was 2.8 million. And then we had a second tier of projects if you're doing some interconnections between different, you know, piping, actual piping interconnections. And there's a different cost in there too. Find it right now. So that
But
2.8
that 2.8 is not connecting the districts, doing the standalone, but doing all the standalone at one time.
When I say connect, I meant consolidate.
Yes,
Consolidating the districts
Yeah.
on paper, but standalone districts, the water's not tied to each facility.
Right.
That's where your cost is,
2.8 million.
2.8 million. And then to fix the sewer system,
So we don't have a cost to fix the sewer system at the moment, because we need to Doug's point, go evaluate, what have you done? Where are
right,
the?
so let's, for argument's sake, the overall package, $6 million to fix and provide our residents with good clean water and good sewer without I&I. $6 million. Would we fall in the same category as the village did that was given a $3 million grant that they put $3 million on?
So the program that the village got that money through is something called the Water Infrastructure Improvement Act. Yeah. That program is need blind, so it does not look at your ability to pay. What it looks at is how important is this project either to public health or to the environment. Now, the other part of the village's package, right, was a zero interest loan. So the balance that's not being paid for by the grants can be paid for by a zero interest loan. You do not qualify for a zero interest loan. That's the part that looks at the ability to pay, right? So, but you may qualify for some interest rate subsidy. You could always bond it yourself, or again, if you have the money in the bank, you write a check. That's another option with that program.
We don't have the money in the bank standalone to the water and sewer district, so we can't use A fund money.
Correct.
So the sewer and water districts unfortunately don't have that type of money, so it's gonna, the burden is gonna be on the town to try to raise that money and then to try to pay it back in a manner where it's not costing them an arm and a leg to get clean water,
Right.
something that they deserve to have.
Right, so there's two ways that goes. One is, you know, the rates that Tracy showed up here were to pay back bonded debt to the point that was made before. So that's going and borrowing the balance. And this is worst case scenario. This is market rate borrowing, no grant support, right? This is a worst case scenario. You know, that's one. Residents are paying back bonded debt. That's one way of doing it. The other way is to say, okay, if I need to raise, you know, even if it's not $2.8 million, if I need to raise $500,000 within the green sand system, you know, how much do you charge residents in Hamiltonian or wherever to raise the $500,000 between now and, right? So that's where you're at, right? There's only two places that the money comes from. You either borrow it and they pay it back over a long period of time, or you charge them and you build up a fund, which we do recommend you still do in a small way. Which I know you've had breaks and you've spent, the most expensive money you spend is the money you spend in emergency. Yes. Right? So it's not planned, paying emergency prices, right? But so it would be to do that ongoing maintenance and those kinds of things. But there's only two ways that this goes. Is either people pay over a long period of time to build up enough money to do a capital project, I gotta be honest, I'm hearing about bad water quality. I don't know how long people are gonna be patient with that,
We have 8 minutes.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
We have 8 minutes to solve this problem.
Right, so it seems to me like, I know the town has gone on a process of, only pay for what you have cash in hand. But it doesn't sound like you're going to really do that anymore.
Well, no, the water quality has become a major problem. Sewer, on the other hand, we've been lining every year about $100,000 in Scotch, in Hamilton
Yeah.
Pond. And they save $25,000 a year just on I&I extension bill. So we've been making progress.
time,
I'd say maybe a third of our lines are
Yeah,
done.
and that's exactly it. That's what we're recommending is doing that.
That's what I would recommend. We continue to do that. Sewer is different than water. And,
Yeah.
so-
That's why we're recommending for sewer that you just keep doing that. You go find those places where it's, because obviously we know there's water getting in there from someplace. You gotta go find
Well,
it.
the other thing is, we dive checked all the force mains for Hamilton Park, and they're in good shape. We did replace one part of it. Is that we've done a lot of things in the last 15 years, but there's lots to do. But,
We're recommending you continue to keep doing that. And to your question about maybe start with sewer, consolidate sewer, and you can see if that works for you and move on.
In this large district, that Mary Beth was talking about with 3 different school districts, we found that there was that economy of scale because I'm working with the parcel lists, I'm working with the staff, we had assessors. An assessor was a big help because they've got all that information on each parcel. We had I flew through all of those 11,000 parcels, closely myself. But doing the water and the sewer, because there was a lot of overlap there together, was really helpful. In your case, the sewer districts are the 2 larger districts, so that would still be useful later if you decided to do a consolidation of water. You'd still have half of that work done, just in terms of the information we would be developed. It's not a bad idea.
What I see as a consolidation, it's all it does is save administrator, it saves staff. And basically gives you an advantage to get grants and loans. Otherwise, we're doing all the same things.
And you're equalizing
Except
the cost.
the problem is,
Yeah.
except now we're redistributing the debt of operation. Some people will go up and some people will down.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's basically what we're looking at. The way I see it. And in order to repair anything, we don't have the time to worry about the whole consolidation and being qualified to get grants and debts. And we know that's a year down the road. We just know that. We tried some consolidation. The state was so big on consolidation years ago. And I think we consolidated 1 or 2 things. Every time we went, it was a nightmare. It was cool, so.
Well, that's why we laid these options out, and there's
Yeah.
charts on separate costs, so that you can decide what you can do now versus not.
Good.
And, discuss it, decide if you want to consolidate, we can help with that. There's options in here on different ways that you can go.
So if we did consolidate, you do all the work.
Yeah, we work with your attorney, the process, this one's mostly straightforward compared to some of the other ones
It is
we've done.
straightforward.
Yours is very straightforward. This one that Tracy did, that down in Sullivan we did another one over in Rensselaer County that took us 3 years to do because it was such a nightmare. Again, it was about 12,000 parcels. That's a lot of work. You guys are 500, so it's substantially easier. It's 600, it's substantially easier. So we could probably do a consolidation process in 4 months.
Yeah.
And you're entirely, unlike going to the state and having the state, you're entirely in charge of the consolidation process, so it's really how fast you want to move.
And is it something that you're looking through the report and the options, is it something you decided is better? Our recommendation is yes, it would be to the benefit of the long run.
And it would be to the benefit of the taxpayer. It makes it more sustainable.
To your point, keep in mind that for a district that might not have need for capital debt right now, something in the future they're going to. So now the district consolidated, it's already.
42 at Arcadius.
But Hamiltonian Park is just 242 long. So this doesn't include Heritage.
If you're
I didn't ask that question.
No.
Water and
Heritage is part of it.
Or young, or young.
No, for clarity purposes, I'm not sure that they're aware of that. So when you did these numbers, sorry, when you did these numbers, and you said Hamiltonian Park is 242, is that inclusive of Heritage, which is part of Hamiltonian Park?
yes,
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
That or even
It's
consolidate,
included
that or-
in that number.
There are 164 parcels in.
Yeah.
There.
The rest are inherited.
It's just, the point is, it's very small to distribute costs over. Overall, it's just very small. to distribute. We have 11,000 users in a district. You can spend a lot of money and nobody notices because they pay $9 more a year and they, whatever, as long as my water's good, right? And you have so few users.
Only a scale.
That's exactly what you're getting is economy of scale. And I think the point Mike just made is an important one, which is given that you may have some districts now that have bigger demands and costs than the little ones, but someday the little one's gonna need $500,000, and how are 40 or 42 people gonna pay for $500,000?
Yeah.
That's a thing to consider when you think about this. So,
back to my question,
sorry.
we have a ballpark figure of what it would cost to consolidate. You're saying consolidate everything, that's for the what would that cost us?
For 600 parcels. Yeah, do you know what I'm saying? Yeah, I would say probably about $20,000. Somewhere in that neighborhood. The more complex ones have taken a lot more time, but this is pretty straightforward. We would consolidate 2 sewer districts and consolidate 4 water districts.
So I have another question, the people, who used to say that you don't know, but these people don't know. You're paying a lot for the sewer now, and with this work that's going to be being done, it's going to be, they're going to be paying more, hopefully you're getting better quality. But I'm looking at the same page, page 8, and at the top of the page there, it says, there's a consolidation fee, and it goes across, and so on and so forth. But if I'm reading this correctly, you have a variance from the 2021, and for Hamiltonian people, that would mean that their for water would go up $414 and 7 cents.
That's because it's including the
Yeah.
fixes at market rate. If you were to consolidate them now and not do any work, and that's also in here. You would see some of these districts go down an awful lot, and some of them go up a little bit because you're making one huge use of this. This would be the increase for fixing all the standalones that we recommend, the $2.8 million, and splitting that evenly among the consolidated districts.
So the first, here's our plan. So this first column here, right here, when it says consolidated fee 168.50 plus $7.61 a thousand. And then there's this list that says Hamiltonian 481.73, Arcadia is 526, Stonehenge 625, and Scotchtown 562.6, right? So that's the actual, if you just simply consolidated and changed the way you charge people, as opposed to doing any capital anything, right?
Yeah.
If it's just simply consolidate, that's the column to look at. You would compare whatever somebody pays, which I thought we had that.
I have it in here, I don't know that.
Which whatever somebody pays today to these numbers. Because as we go across here, this is a recommendation that you charge people $92 a year to change out the meters. This is a recommendation that you spend $2.8 million on capital improvements among the 4 districts for $356 a year in debt repayment. So when you add 92 and 356, that's roughly that difference. So really this $414 difference is the capital that we're recommending.
Yeah, so we have on page 40, there's a consolidated annual cost of water comparisons. And basically, currently right now, Hamiltonian Park, an average person, average amount of water is paying $516.23. Whereas under this, it'd be $481.
So they actually pay Hamiltonian, if you just did the consolidation, you didn't do any capital, they pay $34.50 less a year.
Stonehenge would pay $271 less. Arcadia would pay $65 more, and so would Scotchtown. And that's without, capital costs, that's just your current situation.
So that's the net effect of consolidation. That's one of the reasons why we're recommending consolidation, because it's more equitable, right?
No, you're not considering any certain.
No.
It's just straightforward dollars.
Yep, because we always want to give you the worst case scenario, right? We don't want to- that you can,
So
The increase in capital of 2.8 million is assuming borrowing the entire amount.
It is.
No grant, no
And
funding.
four
no-
point five percent for
What's
30
that?
years. 4.5% for 30 years.
Really?
What we would consider a worst case probable scenario now, if we went out and borrowed it all just at market rate without applying for any of these programs.
Yes, you
Probably,
could,
I can tell you.
that's the worst case scenario.
right, so we use that figure that we're using, that's published by the state. So we,
Understand.
because everybody has a different bond,
It is
bonding
correct.
capacity.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
when we say this is a worst case scenario.
Yeah.
We mean this is a worst case scenario, because we don't control interest rates, as you know. We also don't control construction costs. As we all know, they've escalated a lot. So when Mike put these numbers together, you know, he added, because we know we're not doing the project today, so we added some costs to say, okay, if it was done in 2023 or 24, what could it possibly be? So these do represent sort of a worst case future scenario, but the net effect, I just want to go over that again, Tracy. So the net effect of consolidation is not what you're seeing up here, right? What it is when you take the users and combine them into one district, you're right, you have winners and losers, absolutely. But the net effect of winners and losers, pretty good on balance. $65 more a year to a household for an annual cost. To kind of levelize that, that's the maximum negative impact of consolidation, is $65 a year to a family. That's not a lot of money, but in one of the districts, savings of $271 for Goffstown, for some reason their rates are a lot higher, than it's substantially higher. There you go, there it is.
That's because we were paying cash, accumulated the cash to do the work.
Yeah.
Right, right. So, you know, Hamiltonian, the net effect of consolidation would be everybody would pay about $35 less a year. So these changes, I mean, the 271 less a year, people are gonna notice that. That's like real money, right? Right. The $34 less, $65 more, those
But
changes.
the people that are going to offset that, who are going to be paying more, they're going to notice that too.
You know, it's
A dollar is a dollar.
It's
You know,
interesting
road is
when
a road.
we say that, when we did
Yeah.
the project in Rensselaer County, and we consolidated. The difference was actually a little bit more than that. I think it was about, some people paid substantially less, like $200-300 less. I think the biggest impact somebody had was $87. Families would pay about $87 more a year. We expected pitchforks and torches. We got none. We had every quarter when the bills went out, we had a public meeting. Nobody showed up. Nobody noticed, because it was $87 over the course of a year in this bill you pay once a quarter. When the price of gas goes up and down every day, and you go to the grocery store and it's ridiculous. And I'm not minimizing it, but what I am saying again is, how do you create a sustainable situation? Why Scotchtown is paying so much more? That's not sustainable, right? So that's the reason why we're recommending consolidation. If you do not have to do it, we do recommend it.
That's good. Well, I would argue that if I lived in Arcadia Hills, I have a problem with $65 more for hot water. That's just me.
Right.
I don't live there, but
Right.
that would be me. So
But-
I understand that, I
would
understand
you
that
pay for?
$65 is not a lot of money.
Yeah, would you pay $400 more for clean water?
Well, that's the whole point. My point is putting together a package to see exactly what it's gonna cost them to get clean water. You know,
So
how much you're gonna qualify in grants, how
So
much.
that's-
They
So
got
that's
it.
these numbers up here. They would
They
pay
got it.
about in Hamiltonian, about $400 more. Same thing in Acadia
Only if that was 100% financed by the town.
by the town.
So
That's a worst
So that-
case scenario.
I wouldn't even put that number up because I'd be scared by that number. Honestly, I'd be scared by that number. I would rather wait and see and have a meeting where you say, you're gonna qualify for X dollars in grant money. You would come up with realistic numbers that these people could sit here and say, okay, I'm gonna get clean water. I'll have to spend $160 a quarter on Poland Springs to drink water. My kids are gonna be able to bathe in nice, clean water, not feel dirty when they get out of a shower. And then I think it's a little bit more viable that you would get a take on this.
Right.
But right now, I wouldn't pay a penny more for the water that they were getting.
We totally agree. We absolutely agree.
Not
But
saying
they're
you
not
do
gonna
that.
tell us how much we're gonna get. You're not gonna tell us how much we're gonna get grants and loans.
So
Or grants.
let's,
Loans are something.
let's walk our way through the process here. So we're doing a water and sewer master. Plan, right?
it's a high level look to make administrative recommendations and to kind of come up with some of these big picture capital things. And Doug has said a number of times, a lot of stuff's been done in the sewer system. This is a very high level look, right? So process wise, right? So we're, and we had this in, I think, one of our statistics, we took it out. Is it? What, yes, so what do you have to do right from here, right? So this is kind of what we're saying. Here. So from here, this is not the end of the story, right? This is high level look. Joe called us and said, my sense is consolidation makes a lot of sense from a fiscal administrative, right, sense. Can you look at this? We said, absolutely, we'll look at this. In order to bear out whether or not it makes sense, we have to do this high level kind of planning about what are the needs of your system. So that's what you got right now. It is not details. It is nothing you could go get a grant based on. That's why this process has to play out. If you say, okay, we want to continue to explore this, right? So what do you have to do to get to the point where you can say, what do you qualify for, what, right? So you need, whether or not you decide on consolidation, you need an engineering report to back up any of these improvements. That's a requirement. It's a requirement. Even if you're going to use your own money, the Department of Health's going to say, I need to see an engineering report to know what you're doing is in conformance with the regulation. Same thing with DEC. They want to see engineering reports to know that what you're doing is source system makes sense, right? So gotta have an engineering report. That engineering report serves multiple purposes. Does that regulatory stuff outlines in more detail exactly what's being done, where, to Doug's point, this sewer line from this point to that point is the subject as opposed to in general, right? Also says what are the costs, and nail down the costs a lot more specifically. Technologies, whatever is required. It's used for regulatory purpose, but it's also an entree into how you can apply for a grant, or you can start the process. Some of the grants, like the one that the village got, not only, and this is the unfortunate truth of this, but not only do you have to have an engineering report, you dip your toe in the water and find out how competitive you are with that, but let's actually go apply for the grant. You have to have an engineering report. You must do the seeker. If you have any intermunicipal agreements that are required, you have to have those in place. You have to get through the state historic preservation office. And the last thing, and this is the hard one for everybody, is remember we talked about how they are not 100% grant, they give you a percentage. Yeah. You have to be able to document that you can pay the other portion, whatever it is. And it's not just saying, oh, if we get the grant, we'll go do this. You either have to have one of two things. A bank statement that shows you have the money in the bank. Literally, if it's $2 million, you need to show you have $2 million in the bank and or a bond resolution. That it can be and execute, you're not required to, but that you could go out and sell a bond to support the balance, right? So when you have all of that work done, then you can go apply for a grant. Right. And now you'll know where you are in the process. It is extremely difficult for us to say, I can tell you what the metrics are. I can say that they give you 60% of qualifying costs of $3 million, or they give you X or Y. But the challenge here is we're competing against everybody who submits in the same grant round you do, and I don't know. Buffalo going to submit an amazing application to get all the money.
Yes.
Right. So this is the challenge, and you're right. Like, why would folks want to do this if they don't know what the costs are? But that's why we go through this process, right? So one of the things that would be done, whether you do a consolidation or not, is something called a 202B proceeding. So under the town law, once you've created a special district, so water district, sewer district, and you want to do an increase or improvement in that district, you're required to create an engineering report. Tracy said it before, and that kind of report says who, what, where, and why, how much money, what's the impact, and have a public hearing. So at that point, that's when we go through the nitty-gritty details, because now you have all this engineering work done. So you know things, not high level, it's very detailed. And you're saying, okay, you can go out and borrow money at 2%, and that's the number we'll use. We rerun the math and say, this is what the project looks like. If you were able to get a grant from this program that you qualified for, we can show you the net effect of getting that grant. We always start with this, because we don't do you any favors by giving you a really low number, and then later on, it's not that number.
I like it.
So,
I just like
so
the way
that's
you
kind of
approach
the process,
it.
right?
And I like the way you approach it. Carry on. That's okay. You understand.
Anything else we get? Okay.
And we can rerun any of these numbers, if we wanna do it at a lower percent interest, we can do that. If we wanna, if we wanna say we're not gonna consolidate all the districts, we're gonna, right, we can run that, we can say, if you did Hamiltonian alone, and you use 2% borrowing, and just, we can tell you what that number is.
Right.
We can do all of it. But that wasn't really the purpose of this report, was to say, does consolidation make sense?
But
Right,
once that's all together, we have that math, it's easy to do, and that can be worked out in these steps.
but I agree, I don't pay a dime more if I'm not getting good quality water. But our reality is you're not gonna get good quality water until you spend some money, and then you have to figure out how are you spending that money? How is that done in the best interest of the people working?
We're just spreading debt in different areas, that's it. If we don't do the improvement, that's not going to be, that's nothing, as far as quality.
Right.
Starting in over small days.
Yeah, that's all, that's what I said.
All right, so what do you need from us? What are the next steps?
Yeah, I think you guys
Discuss it
should
now.
decide, yeah, and you can
Think about
discuss
what we
it
have to
whenever,
do. Yeah.
whenever you are ready, and obviously you have a bunch of different paths you can go down. You can go down paths like Earl. You can say we are interested in continuing to explore consolidation. Not committing to it, but you're saying, let's do the actual work to create the documents and evaluate it.
Good.
Or you can say, we don't wanna do that. We wanna instead go do engineering reports for the water improvements and, okay. Or we wanna do them, right, you guys we gave you the cafeteria plan here. You guys need to decide what you're having for lunch. And then we can react to that. The one thing I will do, want to remind everybody, the reason that we have this thing, those reason the preparation timeframes and when everything is due. It's just important to know that if we want to use someone else's money, we are on their schedule. Meaning if we want to get grants, if we want to try to get low cost borrowing through the state, we're on their schedule. Most of these programs you see up here are on an annual basis. They happen once a year. If you miss the boat, you have missed it for that year, and you cannot get on the boat until the following year. So Clean Water State Revolving Fund, which now we know this says Bill Bipartisan Infrastructure Laws TD. That is now actually embedded with the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. It's all one thing. So that means that has a summer deadline. Summer in recent years has meant July or August or September, which by the way, I know it's December right now, it's almost Christmas, but that is tomorrow in our world. July is tomorrow. Most of these are summer, and there are things you need to do in the spring to get in the game. So you sort of, if you want to try to apply for financing in 2023, you'll need to decide that very soon and what you're applying for. On the other hand, I realize that that's a really short timeline. So you may just say, let's take 2023 to do some additional planning work and then do this for 2024. The challenge we always have, and I think somebody said this earlier, is people continue to fill their bathtubs with groundwater while we're doing all this. Right, that's the challenge.
We're talking about two separate things. Talking about the consolidation, so on and so forth, and the economics, and then we're talking about the quality of what we do. We're talking about two separate, totally separate things. I understand what you're talking. One has to be done really fast, and then and the other one, block the things. But we also have to consider what it's going to cost and how we're going to apportion the engineering costs to what district, because whoever we pay, our engineer doing reports and stuff like that. You gotta figure out how much
So
it's
the
gonna
boxes
cost
aren't
you.
really separate.
So there are other things that we have.
Yeah,
So it's combined.
they really are, they really do all kind of come.
They won't be able to do them all at once. I know that it's gonna take time to make all the applications.
Yeah, the one
Not
thing I
tomorrow.
will say is if you do think you want to do engineering work today, and then in the future get financing for it from somebody else. The unfortunate thing is you have to follow all of your rules from the outset.
Right.
Jump through all the hoops, even if you don't have a sign in the dotted line from them, or all of the work that you do cannot be reimbursable under just the programs, right? So it's kind of complicated.
Good. Is there a possibility moving forward with the green sand systems for Hamiltonian and Arcadia? Prior to this?
Well,
That's your clean water issue.
Yeah.
Mr. Peacock,
No.
can you just state your name for the record?
Yes, it's Roland Peacock.
Yeah, no, that would be my perspective. Yeah. You know, I can't ask anybody in either of these districts to pay more money unless I'm giving them clean water. So if we find out what the cost would be to create, to put the green sand filters in Arcadia Hills and Hamiltonian Park, it's already happening in Heritage, the developers doing for that. Moving forward on every development, there'll be a green sand system on any development that comes into Goshen. So I think if we're able to clear the water up so that you can get clean, fresh water, whether you drink it or not, that's entirely up to you. But if you bathe in it, you feel like you're getting a shower, a clean shower. Then I think you can come back and talk about I&I, you can talk about sewer lining, you can talk about all these other things. And I think that if I'm correct, I believe the price I'm getting from the people that are doing Heritage green sand system, about $145,000 with 3 separate distinct systems for Hamiltonian. I haven't looked at Arcadia yet, but I know that's what that cost is, and that, that's the money we went to get from Senator Scoopus, and we're given that grant.
I know it's gonna cost $3,000 to $5,000 for me to put in my own system.
Correct.
And it would be a hell of a lot more efficient if we did it, for the entire Hamiltonian.
No, I currently agree, absolutely. I mean, and I understand where they're coming from, having one sand system and be, more efficient, but at this point right now, I don't have $1 million, you don't have $1 million, we don't have $1 million to put all that pipe and get it in one unit. So let's figure out what it's gonna cost to get 3 separate unique systems in each one of them.
We don't
You
need
get clean water
to do that. We can secret to dig holes and run pipes.
What's that?
That's a big deal. You need a secret if you're gonna start running main lines through.
Well, correct.
Because you're gonna go around water, around wetlands and everything else, so.
And that's why I firmly believe putting 3 separate units is not, maybe in the long term, it's gonna be more maintenance for us, but. All during that time, there's 5 or 6 years that, we're paying maintenance on it. You're paying maintenance for getting clean water.
Right.
So Joe, you have how much money, doesn't Senator Scoopus?
200,000 on $1 million, so.
200,000 against the $1 million project. Right, and with those, most of those, you have to pay for it first and then they reimburse you.
Correct.
down the road, Right? So for Hamiltonian, for just well 5A, the estimate right now without complete engineering is $350,000.
I don't know,
And then
I don't even
Arcadia,
know what ballpark you're in. It's nowhere near what Heritage is paying.
well, and then that's what we got for,
On a well of that capacity.
that would be the difference. And then Arcadia,
Through all 3. You're talking about all 3 wells in Arcadia.
And for Hamilton.
That was one
One
well.
One well,
Well, 5, where a centralized filtration system would go, that would be the one to start with. And then the connect well.
So my point is that you're putting a big enough filtration system in well 5 to handle the other wells, then you gotta pipe back to the others. You're not putting 3 separate units in.
Correct. Yeah. You mentioned. That, yeah, the well 1, to connect well 4 to a central filtration unit at well 5, it's another 175,000. And then to connect well 1 to that, now you're talking about 450. Like whereas you're probably looking at in the range of another 350, $100,000 savings to put a dedicated filtration unit at well 1. I would saving $100,000 versus piping it to the one at well 5.
All in all, whatever improvements we do make, if we do the consolidation, should reduce the cost of our capital expense to.
Right,
It should reduce that 2.8 million down, maybe not the whole of it,
right.
because it's not.
What's the status of the heritage? The filtration units for the heritage well? I understand the developer is obligated to provide.
So what we have right now is, they applied to the Board of Health for wells 5 and 6 over there. And not well 7 or well 3, whatever.
Right.
well is. So I went back to them and said, I'd like to see you do all of them. If it's a little bit additional money, let us know what the additional money is, and we'll figure out whether the town's gonna pay it or No, we're gonna force you that, but sooner or later, that well's gonna have magnesium and iron in it anyway.
I mean, it has it now, yeah.
It doesn't have it now.
Well, I thought, it isn't what?
Two wells do.
Well, that's the only one that. All of us had it, it's a question of what level.
So we're waiting for the engineer to come back. Steve Esposito is waiting for his engineer to come back and give us the cost associated with that. Then they're gonna submit the Board of Health for all the wells. I don't know how long this is gonna take. I think they're 60,
Yeah,
90
And they
days
were,
out.
and they were thinking that we do that for substantially less, is that what you were?
What? I'm sorry, what?
Just when you said 350,000, you said thinking about the being in the ballpark or not in the ballpark, right? You can understand that.
I think the three smaller units are gonna be substantially less than one combined unit. I could be wrong, but that's what I'm waiting to get feedback from them on.
Oh, okay.
Well, we do have a figure of 151, I believe. Or that's what we're holding back. in the heritage.
That was the initial cost for that.
Well, that was maintained,
Yes.
It was a silver jet.
maintained, so that's where the figure came that.
And has that been updated for today's prices?
Yeah.
That's the current price, and that's what the bond is gonna be. In order for us to release the major bond, he's gotta put a bond up that's gonna cover the cost if he walks away from doing that work. That's the cost estimate they got from the company that's supplying their green sands.
So that's the sand and all of the site work, the piping, the.
Piping and everything is in already.
And all in.
It's a combined, filter house.
Everything but the. Everything but the.
That's what I'm saying. If it's 151 for all three wells, I don't know what the individual cost is gonna be for all three, with three separate locations in Hamiltonian Park. But clearly, that's the fastest way to get this done.
But we can certainly estimate that, we can look at what that cost us, with the different.
Because filtration also involves backwashing and get the tie,
Yeah.
do all that, so we make sure we kind of call that. A building, yeah, building is obviously.
Because that may be the other difference is Heritage already has a building, right?
Correct.
So here you gotta build a building, so that's another reason that the cost is. So, yeah, but we can do that, if that's what, we can certainly estimate.
I want-
we can do.
I want to try to get fastest way to get these people clean water.
Okay.
The fastest way. If that means three separate systems, and we do that, then we can come back and talk about an entire comprehensive plan of putting all new piping in and you know, raising their rate to $65 a year. Maybe they're even more incentivized to say, okay, yeah, now I got clean water now. So maybe you're right, $65 a year is not a lot of money.
Great. Well, again, so I think the question then is to figure out what that cost is, and then where does the money come from to pay for that cost of doing something immediately? Right, this,
Correct.
right,
We can look and see what we have in fund balances, you know. And go from there.
okay, so should, that's something you'd like us to look into as we leave this, is come back with. The work with Sean, come back with what is the cost of 3. Xanthopus for that.
From my perspective, that's what I'd like to see, but you know,
I think so as well.
On the board.
Okay, we can definitely do that. Okay. And the reality is, whatever you do doesn't preclude you from consolidating, doesn't preclude you from looking for grants and things for future projects. This would not be eligible for that kind of stuff. This is what we're doing right now, which is not that you need to do something in the short term. And that's my point about these timelines. They are long. So usually when people get to a crisis situation, it's hard to wait on someone else's money because it just takes such a long time.
So if I can just ask one question, so I understand time period. When you say 6 to 9 month preparation time, that's the time it takes you to prepare the bid request?
It's
So for all
just
intents and
not even to
purposes,
prepare a bid request, just to prepare to apply for the funding.
so my point is then pretty much every one of those things we're way beyond the ready.
Yeah.
So we're looking at 2024.
Right. So that's why what you're saying.
So let's
makes
get
a lot
them
of
clean
sense.
water in 2023.
Get clean water, figure that out, and then this can be something you consider for future.
Yeah.
Because that's a long time to wait.
Yeah.
Because this is just when you're submitting the application. It's not when you're getting the money.
Mhm.
It's not when they tell you if you get the money. It's
Right.
not, that process is even longer. That's my point about using other people's money. Grants always sound great. They take an enormous amount of time to get.
No doubt.
Yeah.
So let's look at what it would cost for, you know, Ham Park, Arcadia Hills, Green Sand System. We've already approved, orthophosphate, so all that cost is gone now. We don't have to worry about that.
Right. Well,
Well, it can be an exchange, right? Whatever's being, that cost can go into paying for this.
Correct.
Right, so, right. So, Mike, is that?
Christine, you have?
Yes.
I did a little research on the consolidations, and what I've seen is that any debt that each district has stays with them. It's not,
No, it's spread over everybody.
that's not what I. Right, because I thought it's kind of on the end of the contract, and the law is specifically for a certain district.
Right, so say you were consolidating a, village to a town. And the village had a sewer system. To do that, the town would create a sewer district that covers the geography of the village. When consolidation happens, whatever debt was with that stays with them, it doesn't go out into the general fund of the town, right?
Well, let's use this example, on Pedro, you just borrowed $700,000 from the water storage. If we consolidate, what's gonna happen? Are all the districts going to share that $700,000 debt, or does it stay with us?
No, it's good, it's everybody shares. And then the next quarter thing, and everybody shares, and then, yeah, so it doesn't matter where it ends up, everybody shares. Yeah, yeah, we can go over that, but yes, these are a little bit different, because it's going, it's water to water is going from water to water. That's why like I say, like with municipal consolidations, if you consolidate a town and a village, it doesn't change the underlying fire districts, it doesn't change, right? So that's kind of the analogous situation you're talking about, doesn't change any of that. But with water and sewer districts, if you consolidate two water districts together, you find them, you extend them, you do those things, and everybody shares in the cost.
So,
Is there?
I'd like to open it up to the floor, so.
Oh, yeah.
Residents-
I'll just make it quick, I think it'll be quick. You mentioned getting clean water and total involved like anybody else. Yep. And I think the consensus of this board was, yeah, that makes a lot of good sense.
Mhm.
So we have some residual in water funds, water sewer funds. But the only thing I can think about is that then we would have to bond the rest.
We have to determine what the cost is and then determine what that cost is gonna be for the residents of both of those districts that we put on that money.
Right.
Right. And you guys will need to just provide us with what you want to use for an interest rate and a borrowing term.
0 free.
I love it.
Yes.
I just want to know for the calculation, not for.
Yeah.
Well, what
what's being
we-
done,
what-
that's all.
That's something we're not,
Depends
Christine.
on what you're borrowing the money for, it has to actually use for what.
Yeah, right. PPU for this will be, let's say 35 years for argument's sake, they're usually 40, but since we're probably just in rehabilitation, that we would land at PPU. So it's usually not less than 20 and not greater than 30, so 40 is the max, so let's say 25. 25. But, you know, that's why we use that 4.5. We use whatever the state tells us to use. We also go on, there's a great website where you can go and look at every bond that's been issued, every municipality in the state of Maine. And it'll tell you exactly what the terms are. We use that as a metric as well to try to figure this out. And we always try to be a little bit generous, just because you're not borrowing them today. You're gonna borrow it sometime in the future, and we've all been listening to rate hikes and all these other things that affect the bond markets and stuff like that. So we just try to be conservative.
Ron,
I don't know about that. People are really enjoying that 3% on this, on their.
Their
savings
Yeah,
accounts.
there has to be inflation will go down and see what's like. Anyway,
Yeah, I have a question for you guys and then to the board too, but according to the plan, I live in Hamilton Park and the former supervisor now on the council here told me that when more water is being used, I get more sediment and manganese and stuff through our neighborhood with the pipes or whatever. So, because I first started really seeing this problem in 2020, people were home more, using more water, whatever, pandemic. But yeah, it also ties into when Heritage tied in to us, right? That's when we started to see more of the problem. I did groundwater, I had a jar that I brought, I didn't want to put on the table and make a scene here, but I did bring it. So that's a scenario of more water. Then there's the new development across the road, Maple Grove or whatever it is, Maple something or other. Maple. And then even the second phase of Hamiltonian that people want to build on. So the question is, will that degrade our water quality when more pipes and more stuff is happening? Or was that just something I was told? That more water pull in the system causes it to get worse?
So it's a fire hydrant flushing is definitely gonna disrupt it. It's, you know, that how thermal flow. And I suspect that the water. Trying to visualize the mapping, the supply line, the well supply lines at Heritage must go through the distribution system in Hamiltonian, don't we get to the tank. So it may not be, well, it might not be fire flow velocities, but it may be a higher velocity of the pumps pushing stuff through, and the sediment that comes out from, that's precipitating in the distribution system from the minerals at Hamiltonian, by getting disrupted. So it's, I get, yeah. Higher flow rates causes turbulence, that causes stuff to, you know, stuff that was already settled in a main to get.
So what you're saying is that when you build new homes across the street, up the hill, whatever, you need to account for that and then building systems that protect the water.
Well, you definitely want to make sure, the idea is to remove the minerals that are causing this vibration at the source.
So I don't believe that the planning board, when they were gonna cut down trees 2 years ago in the northern part, up the hill, I don't know the direction, but up the hill in Hamiltonian, thought about that. And so just my caution to the town board is to make sure that the planning board is aware of those things as they're going to be approving new homes. Be able to make sure that we tie in the correct filters or whatever that we're talking about here, just be that makes sense. Like you said, go with the developer and Heritage maybe future builds.
Correct.
Let's just make sure that the planning board knows what the town board is talking about, because
I
I don't
think
think they always do.
I mean, Sean's the engineer on the planning board, so I'm, you know,
Yeah, I actually took a note about that for Maplewood specifically. Maplewood is getting towards the end of their project approval. They're gonna be coming to you, I'm sure, for developers agreement after that, and that's gonna be incorporated in that developers agreement, I'm sure.
It was touched on early on, but very briefly, but the developments that are looking to tie in, some of these developments might actually solve a significant amount of the problem, particularly source water capacity. I know that the wells at the hydrogeological report they saw for Maplewood, they have 2 high producing wells. Just to make sure that the water quality, safe, as long as the minerals that are causing discoloration aren't gonna increase over time, and count for that from the get-go.
Because that's another issue that's going on, right? If you think about this, is the raw water has iron and manganese in it, chlorinated, so it's safe to drink. It oxidizes those, and that's that brown stuff that you see, right? And it gets deposited inside the pipes. And while a water system is always fully charged, right? There's no, like, if you put a slip pipe that's got kind of like water running across the bottom and then there's air gap. That's not the case with the water system, but that scour that happens, right, when you flow. But another thing that can happen is if you're adding new sources in different locations, it can sort of change how the water travels the pipe. The quantity of minerals is not the same in every single well, so depending on where the water is being, the amount of chlorine that's being put in the system is different because you have to maintain a residual all the way through. The more feet of pipe you add, the more chlorine you're kind of putting in to maintain that residual. And if you remember from your high school chemistry class, the reaction will continue until there's nothing left to react. So the longer the water is in the pipe, the more the reaction kind of builds and builds and builds and builds. So there's to your point, it's kind of a sophisticated situation. The one good piece of news is that a green sand filter is radon proof and taking out that iron and manganese before it gets chlorinated. So before that precipitate is even created, it gets removed in a green sand filter. We've done green sand filters all over the Catskills. That's one of the reasons why we do have pricing on them, because we've done a lot of these systems. Because when you go up into the Catskills, there's lots of iron and manganese. It works really, really well. It's very straightforward, simple technology. You do need to make sure that you do have things like backup power, so that when the power goes out, it still works. Those kinds of things, but it's a really simple solution. Because the alternative, which is what you guys are doing now, is what's called a sequestrant, which just keeps those minerals in solution, which is in some cases people, do that when it's a very low demand and there's not a lot of iron and maybe just in the water. Your water has a lot of iron.
So the durable long-term solution, as Supervisor said, get the green sand filters in, remove it.
Yeah, my water source, anything from a Bud Light to a Guinness, kind of turn on the tap,
Yeah.
so that's not, I like those beers, but that's not.
Yeah.
So to the board, I just want to say, this has been a known problem for a long time. Doug has said that before he was supervisor, he knew about some of these problems. So I'd like to commend Joe for trying to take action. You guys have called in 6 months ago and trying to make some work happen, get grant money from the state center and those kind of things. So thanks for joining up and moving forward with this. We need it desperately. So thank you.
Anybody else from the audience?
I have a question, sorry, before they go. So I said, wanted to have a public meeting with the water districts in January. Is that still realistic? Will we have a pricing on the green fence sand filter? Or should?
With the holidays, we might get a little bit more. Because there's just a question.
Yeah, no, I'll push it out. So people are ready.
Is that just an informational that you want to have?
It was pretty much an informational to look at the rates and let the public know what we're planning on doing and get their input.
So it sounds like our focus is really shifting to this kind of immediate project,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So this kind of is maybe in the background a little bit, right?
Well, I think we have time because there's no way it's gonna get done. So I think we have time to react to this by June, July of
This year,
2023,
yeah,
2024.
that would actually be ideal. And by then we'll know a lot.
Certainly
right?
revisit it between now and then, but.
Correct, yeah.
Exactly.
But I think if we can get a green
Yeah.
sand system in both of those districts.
Okay.
Get the water clean for them. It's a starting point.
Absolutely.
Don't,
I agree. And although we've been here at many meetings prior to this one, I'd like to thank you for bringing it at least to this stage. I don't think you've ever been at this stage before after all the complaints. I have groundwater. I have water snow storage. I have specs in my water. And I think it's incredible that you should see. So thank you for bringing this to this. I appreciate that too. There's been a few battles in the past. Been here many times before. And have brought Sandra before. And one of the things that thank you very much. I think we need, Arcadia overall of our citizens.
They do what
how
bad,
many wells do we have in our game?
that are actually in use. It's 3 in the 20s, 3 in the. It's basically 6 that are, I can say, 6 that are available, 5 that I believe were in use. You have 2 pairs,
We have 2 to 8 wells.
2 pairs, 3 wells, 20s and 30s.
Yep.
Yeah.
You have a few other wells that have been not used or formerly abandoned elsewhere.
Once you put the green sand in, is there a lot of maintenance to green sand filters?
Not really.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Well, yeah,
Nothing
no,
less than the ongoing orthophosphate bill we're gonna get.
Yeah, there's not a lot. I mean, I think the biggest thing is, so the way green sand filter works is, it's called adsorption, so not absorption, but adsorption. The green sand filter has little particles in it that have like spaces in them. The iron and manganese connect to those spaces. That's how and it literally binds to the green sand. So it's literally taking it out. It's not like right now, the iron manganese stay in solution because it is being bound chemically, these phosphate chemically. So that green sand actually binds them and takes them out. It's a bed in the filter, right? So the filter does run through, kind of has an automated cleaning cycle, those kinds of things. Eventually, the green sand will stop having those spaces for that connection to be made, and the green sand has to be taken out and put new green sand in, right? So how often you do that is based on how much iron and manganese is in your water, right?
So so when you size one of these filters and you design it to the point that the gentleman made, you have to take all this stuff into consideration. So that you're making sure that it's actually big enough, that what's called the filter application rates of how much water is applied to that particular unit. It allows that process to happen, because it doesn't happen instantly, right? So there's some science going on here, but they're actually fairly low operationally. They don't draw a lot of power. They don't require a tremendous amount of operator attention. It's a pretty simple and straightforward filtering process. That's one of the reasons that we've used a lot. We've used in a lot of places, we've used in municipal systems, used in Joshua systems, used all over the Adirondacks, all over the Catskills, because iron and manganese in our groundwater is just a function of our geology. It's in a lot of places.
So like a water softener does have backwash.
Backwash.
He is having access to public sewer, which goes Hamiltonian and Arcadia.
So it has to be backwash based on head loss, it goes to the filter, but it's a really pretty simple process from operator kind of, it's not a big demand on the operator. Like you say, sort of maintaining your phosphate, making sure that is happening at the right amount and quantity is more complicated than running the filters.
It's probably less labor than Raleigh and I switching out our filters all the time in our slop sinks. So the maintenance is probably less on the.
You're experts now.
Well, I will. I just want to add that I'm a big fan of this consolidation plan. I know it's not a public hearing for that, but I'd like the board to really consider that. It seems like it makes a ton of sense. I know this board is fiscally conservative in many ways, but this just makes sense. And I'll pay this $5 for this lady over here. It's just one way.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Excellent. All right, moving on. Sean's been patient and diligent waiting for his turn. So item number 8, State Rolling Ridge subdivision, discussion of a drainage district.
So Rolling Ridge. Rolling Ridge is completing the improvements. They're getting ready to dedicate their roads to you. Rolling Ridge was approved in 2016, right as you became an MS4. And at that time, the planning board had made a requirement on the developer to come before you to establish a drainage district in case you wanted to fund the maintenance of the drainage facilities through a district. The developer never came before. So I'm here this evening really just to discuss this with you in satisfaction of the planning board's requirement. In this particular case, whether you wanted to or maybe not wanted to have a drainage district, it would be impractical for you to have a drainage district and impose that on this subdivision at this time, because the developer is supposed to come to you 2 months after his approval, when he still owned the parcels. He now has sold all the parcels, and if you were to make a determination that there was to be a drainage district, you would have to have a vote, and the majority of those people would have to pass it. So unfortunately, because of the developer's lack of action, you really could impose that on him. I just don't know if it would really come to fruition. So I'm here to discuss that with you, so I can report back to the planning board that condition is satisfied and cross that off the punch list.
How big an item, big problem is this potential?
Well, in terms of long-term, it really depends what happens from a regulatory standpoint. As you know, you're now in MS4, you have an obligation to maintain stormwater facilities. The way you had done them in the past and are continuing to do them to this day is you are requiring either HOA or the individual lot owner to maintain those.
Right.
You would do that through an enforcement proceeding with the building inspector. And then you have taken easements over these facilities in case you need to enter them, abandoned property, or somebody just refuses to do it. But it would be a process if somebody was, if the DEC came down and said, hey, this pond isn't functioning, it's causing dirty water. You send your building inspector out there, he says, that's right, it's not, it hasn't been cleaned out or whatever, he issues a violation, then you know how difficult it would be. You would have to go after that person for the cost, and you may incur legal fees, and you may never actually be made whole. So the planning board's thinking at the time, again, this is 2016, as this was thought of, was that they wanted to give you the option, they wanted to compel the developer to appear before you to give you the option whether you want to go to the drainage district. But in the future, Doug, it may be something that you want to go to.
Yeah, we are. You're proactive on it, say, yes, we will do this.
Yeah, and I think what's
Part of this board.
as residential subdivisions appear before the planning board, they can't make that requirement. It's a legislative requirement comes from this board.
Right.
They are going to require developers to come to you, and I think what we're gonna do in the future to avoid a situation like this is recommend that they actually come to you before the subdivision is finalized.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we have a problem going back and trying to get all these easements at this point right now. I think we should decline on that, then go back to the HOA. I do think Broderick has brought that attention, and so did Frank, and especially in Swatters Peak. You got trees growing out of these stormwater retention ponds. And eventually that's gonna come back to us, so we're probably gonna have to spend some money to start cleaning some of these things out.
Those ones might not come back to you, Supervisor, because those occurred many years ago before the modern stormwater regulations. But these ones that have occurred in, let's say, the last 10 to maybe 12 to 15 years, like Rolling Ridge,
Yep.
like these new ones, Maplewood and things of that nature. They would, I think, at
They're
some
on-
point.
On individual property, right? They're on.
Yes,
Yeah,
they're the owners
Maplewood
responsible.
may be a little bit different. If you recall, you recently made a determination to accept
Taking that back.
property, so I have to look at where those ponds fell relative to the property we recently agreed to accept.
Right, but the other one, the homeowner went in, understanding that they were responsible for this, those water retention ponds. And if we had to clean them out, if they didn't, or whatever, that should get billed back to the property on taxes or whatever.
That's the current situation you
Right,
have in another
right,
subdivision. What a district would do, and I don't mean to belabor it under the Rolling Ridge subdivision, but what a district would do is, we would set up a district, there would be some administrative more work and costs, yes. But we charge the people within that subdivision for any maintenance required on those stormwater ponds, because those are the ones getting the benefit of those ponds.
And we have some that are districts.
Not
all of
stormwater
them are
districts, as far as I know.
individuals, right?
No, because there was no real need, originally going back to 25 plus years ago, there was really no regulatory requirement for there to be stormwater ponds. You'll have some, but
Okay.
no, I don't believe you have any.
Oh, all right.
No,
I don't know if it's called, I don't know if it's called the drainage, but I can remember us going over a couple of different subdivisions. And we,
Yeah.
said, it's Eric Noel saying,
Yeah.
we want no part of maintaining. it.
yeah, so that's how you have what you,
So the landowner.
Correct.
Usually the person is, I guess, contiguous with that pond, responsible, hey, look, and then if they didn't maintain it, then we would go in and charge them back.
Right,
that's exactly what you have right now.
What we have-
That is, if you will, the opposite of the district.
good idea, but now we should
That's
set up a
opposite.
district.
That's opposite of it. That was-
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now to the matter at hand, we're going Ridge. Well, are we kind of stuck with it? Is that what I'm saying?
Well, you're stuck under the model that you had just described.
The owner's
They're on
stuck.
individual lots. They will be, the owner of those lots are required to maintain those ponds. If they do not maintain the ponds, you have the ability to enter there, do the work, and then back charge them, and then chase the money if,
Right.
so.
So we're gonna have to probably set up like some type of yearly inspection, Robert will have to do. And then go back and
Yes, Broderick and
Notify
Frank
the
should be,
residents that they need to be cleaned.
yes,
That was part of the original plan anyway.
yes, that's a requirement. MS4.
Right,
permit.
right.
Well, I mean, Albert Finney had his two subdivisions at Houston Road, the Woodland Estates, they were all, they put in the ponds and all this kind of stuff.
They're exactly as George just described.
And
Yeah,
it was
that's
our
how it was.
understanding that when we looked at them, they needed work,
So
either they could do it or we can do it and build back.
Yes.
So what
what
is,
is-
that's the
what
way it
is
is
the-
in Golden Ridge now.
That's the way it will be at Rolling Ridge when it gets accepted, whenever he's before you. He's hoping to have everything finished by the end of the year, right? Is he still on that as far as you
From
know?
what I understand, he's got everything done other than that guardrail thing. He's gotta go back to his engineer and find out whether he was putting the large decorative stones in there are gonna account for not having that guardrail.
Okay.
So what are you saying now, that you want to
Well,
set up a separate district and take a piece of that property?
unfortunately, even if, I think food for thought, moving forward in the future, you're gonna wanna consider districts on residential subdivisions.
Right.
And I'm gonna recommend to the planning board that they send developers to
To
you
us
for
to
that.
create it.
with Rolling Ridge, because of the time that's gone past and the fact that he doesn't own the properties anymore,
Yeah,
it's really infeasible that you could actually set up a district area.
so whoever owns that property now is responsible for that district period. So that's a done deal, but yeah, in the future, we set up districts and then the homeowners association. Look, that was a consideration before, I don't know why we didn't do it. Maybe it was too cumbersome.
Well, I believe at the time, there was questions about liability and requirements and costs and things like this.
Right, that's right. Yeah.
Well, see, I'm still with Fabi on this. I understand clearly what you just talked about, what I just described. But now, if we are going to have a drainage district, how is that different? How is it different from what we have now?
Charges all, it gives you a mechanism to charge all homeowners in that district for the maintenance of the stormwater ponds.
Oh, I
Except
see.
the owner of the property. Now the owner of the property buys the property, but has to understand that it's it.
So it's the better situation there is if we could go back in time, would be then to have the drainage district there, and we'd be able to charge everybody in the subdivision. Correct.
Now, can that not even come to us? Can that be a requirement of the planning board process when he comes in?
Only if you were to incorporate it in your code, I wouldn't recommend that because there may be some cases on subdivision where you may not want that. For whatever
Okay.
reason. You know, you may have one enormous parcel and a number of small parcels, an enormous parcel has a pond. There may be some case by case basis
Okay.
where you don't want
I
it.
understand.
Moving forward, I think you should consider it. I think the highway superintendent is leaning in that direction as well. Is that right?
Yep, correct.
Well, at least the planning board can give us a recommendation.
No, they're gonna make a requirement of developers to come to you.
But the planning board will recommend whether we should.
I think they are making a recommendation in sending them to you. It's just the fact that they're making that a requirement. There's nothing required from you.
We're just gonna say no to him, he's gonna have to.
It really, it doesn't affect the developer. It's something he doesn't need to do now, so,
Great. You just gotta check it off for the planning board. Good.
correct.
All right, moving on. Number 9, review and discuss introductory law number 6 of 2022, a local law amending chapter 49, amendment to the New York State Uniform Fire Prevention Building Code and repealing chapter 49C Building Code Administration. I think Kelly did this one, right, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, Kelly did. So, it's basically mandatory, something mandatory that we have to get.
Correct. And it
Yeah.
was, yeah, so she put some comments in there, I'll memorialize, the remainder of it. Go through the process.
Do we have to have it in place and ready to go by a certain time?
We have to set a public hearing for December 19th. It's supposed to be done by the end of the year. Frank Lubin did read it over today and he agreed with everything Kelly commented
Quite
on.
nice.
Yeah.
It's usually done on the front end of the year, but with the transition to, it got
It's
delayed, so,
You
but
okay
I'm
with
good, I'm good with it, yep, Frank's good with
Okay,
it.
we'll
Kelly's-
finalize it and have we need a motion now to set a public hearing on December 19th, so I have a motion to set a public hearing.
So moved, the 7:30.
30.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
You don't need me for anything else. I'm gonna bid you good night.
Your excuse, so.
Thank you.
John?
They already discussed it, they tabled it because the developer had a conversation with the supervisor.
We can set a work session for that.
Yeah.
He's practically involved, just so you know, he was.
Okay, good, okay, okay.
Yeah, he was, we gave them a lot of the information, so they
So
were.
then he can talk to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're
Next,
gonna table the next public meeting.
we're gonna table number 10, correct? Approve the establishment of a comprehensive plan review committee. So we're looking at, do we have an obligation to look at it every so many years, every 5 years, we haven't looked at it in.
Well, we technically, it was, and Doug, you probably speak better to it, but it was touched upon during the Legoland.
Yeah.
Reevaluation, so it was, I think it was satisfied, but it was
This time.
yeah, it's time to.
So all we're really doing tonight is approving the establishment of a comprehensive review committee and then determining who's gonna be on that committee, how many people we need, so. If I could have any
I don't even think you
discussion.
need a motion for it, but it's, you certainly, I think it's more than a thumbs up, you don't need a motion.
Okay, so everybody's okay with that?
Yeah.
All right, discuss and approve the reappointment of Diane Lipinski to the planning board in January 2023. Diane's been with us a long time on the board. She's crucial to all of the agricultural farm questions that we have on the planning board. So, second, all in favor? Aye.
I'd like to say she also has a master's, she's got a degree in economics and a master's degree in economics. It's a strong suit. That's a good job.
Absolutely. Information, Daniel Ketchum was hired as the new GO at the highway department. Okay, discuss and approve the reappointment of Cynthia Hand to the Board of Assessment Review Board.
So moved, I worked with Cynthia, I worked on the review board. She's an attorney, she
She's a tax attorney.
does an excellent job. So I move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Discuss and approve the appointment of Neil Holloran to the Environmental Review Board. We are losing.
Yeah, he's staying on the planning board.
Sound planning board, losing Marty on it.
Yeah.
So,
He's
Neil,
great.
And we lost Sam Ferguson.
With both of us, yeah. He's
so we're
he's
down
doing
two
great.
people on the Environmental Review Board. Not a board that a lot of people want to get on, but Neil was generally granted while he was building inspector, so. Can I get a motion to approve that? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, discuss and approve the appointment of Anna Lee from part-time clerk to full-time court clerk at a yearly salary of $48,974 beginning January 1st. She's replacing.
Well, she's not, she's going full time. She is.
Right, but the full-time position was there.
Right, it was Chelsea and Taj at the last
Right.
iteration.
Right, exactly, so she's basically replacing Taj.
Yeah, essentially, yeah, one of them.
So moved.
I mean, she is, there's still structure, you're still structured with it.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Vote on it? Okay. Should we vote on it?
Time to talk.
We did.
I missed that.
You said.
Didn't even want to.
So, we have another information, but another loss in our building department, the resignation of John Terry as a part-time fire and safety inspector effective December 31st. He's moving to a full-time job in Washington. Okay. We have, obviously, we all know we've hired new employees, additional employees, so Broderick is asking, discuss and approve the purchase of 2 Ford F-350.
So we do need a motion to accept.
I'm not gonna do it.
You know what? Where were you on that one?
It said,
I know, I'm
hold on a second. Whoever does the, whoever does the,
The agenda?
put this agenda together for me, you know.
Back.
Is that information only?
We accept his resignation. So moved. And send him a nice letter of thanking him.
Who's moving?
I'll second it.
Bill is moving.
Aye.
Who's sending him a letter? Oh, me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm so glad we're getting punchy at 9:30.
Oh, man.
We could
All right,
just
so-
type the next agenda to provide the retro.
This could be 20 minutes, this next discussion. Discuss and approve the purchase of 2 Ford F-350s with plows and sanders for the highway department. Christine left, I wanted her to tell
I
you
guess
that.
the question I have is why Ford's going, everything else is international harvested.
Fords are the only thing available on state sale right now.
They bid?
They're the state bid.
What?
So they're the state bid.
Yep, state bid, they're the only things available,
So
$61,000.
these are not major road ones, these are
No.
for.
No, pickup trucks.
I mean, what are they gonna be used for?
Plowing and
Sanders.
Street picking stuff up.
Subdivision, things like that, okay, fine.
Well, so, I mean, of course.
$61,000 per truck.
So it's 60, is that, do we need to?
You have 3 new employees coming on, you need trucks for it.
We need. Well, they're replacement people, we need a lot more.
No, it's higher.
But no, all I'm trying to say is this, is when we have a bad snowfall, right, we need these 2 trucks.
Well, we have to worry about heritage now, when the roads are tight, you can't get a big truck in there, so you gotta get small trucks in there. Same thing's gonna follow suit for Maplewood. Any of these small developments with tight turns and tight corners, we can't get a big truck.
So we need more plowing, so we need more vehicles. We have the employees.
And we have the money in the highway fund we haven't spent.
So moved.
Second.
Second,
Talking right.
Alright.
All in favor? Aye. Review and approve the November 10th, 2022 minutes. Any questions, changes on those? No. Motion? So moved. Second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Review and approve the November 21st, 2022 minutes.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Discuss and approve a motion to authorize the supervisors to pay accounts payable check run on December 8th, 2022, in the amount of $117,871.13. Motion?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Discuss and approve a motion to authorize the supervisor to pay workers' comp claims in the amount of $1,714.42. So moved. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Discuss and approve manual check run November 1st through November 30th in the amount of $28,066.41. So moved. Second.
Second.
All in favor? Information only, Christine Cavalier conducting accounts payable audit, December 8th, 2022. It's attached. If anybody have any questions about it? See Christine. Okay, the floor is open to our residents. Yes, sir.
I'm out of Heritage. I understand you discussed, I had three. Prior to the official meeting. Which is the Heritage Development Committee.
Correct.
Are we on board for?
There's a technical issue in the resolution on what the bond request is gonna be. We normally ask for a cash bond, but the resolution that we've written just said performance bond. So Roger is walking about putting cash up. We'll rather put a surety bond up. So we have our attorney looking at what the next steps to do. But we should be able to get it resolved by the next meeting. Now, the question is gonna be,
The issue with me is before the next snow.
correct, I understand. He's responsible for plowing until he gets it, he knows that. But hopefully we'll have it resolved. I got it late this afternoon. Steve Esposito, unfortunately, he has a new email address because he sold his business. So when Rory sent it to him, he sent it to the old email, and that Steve never got it. Steve got it yesterday,
They got it yesterday, the day before.
and then he passed it off to Roger. And Roger sent me an email at 5:15 today.
But the remainder of the agreement is acceptable. There's one clause, it's a big clause, but that's the only piece.
It's the only piece he's objecting to and asking for clarification and asking to come before the board to state his position.
We have the minutes that show us that we've discussed the cash bond.
Yeah, I
Well,
don't,
specifically, so it's not a surprise, a performance bond, but we said that we wanted it in cash, so.
So we're gonna review that, find out what our legally we can do to convince him to put cash up, because we have a position on that. And we'll get it resolved by the next meeting.
The reason why we're going to cash bonds is because in the past, it was long through. I think we never get the money. We do the work and we do it all.
All right, anything else? I get a motion to